Leader Raila Odinga and his allies to make good their threat, promising to shoot it down. In legal terms, the language of impeachment is couched in and even grounds for the same detailed in law. At the end of it, politics plays a greater role. This is according to a legal scholar, Mr. Wamuti Ndegwa, and he says that it's not like a legal process where evidence is submitted and examined, whether it satisfies the requirements of law. It all boils down to politics. So politics will be played here. It's possible that we will see a motion.
It's not possible. I can tell you that for sure.
Anything is possible.
It is not the first time that Orengo has said this. They're not going to bring it. They didn't bring it the first time. They don't have grounds to bring it the second time. They're just playing politics.
Upon which these are grounds for them to bring it.
Nah,
so I mean,
it's nothing.
We'll see. Anything is possible. I don't think we can couch it and say it's impossible. Anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
Are you aware that if you bring grounds to impeach the deputy, you're also bringing grounds to impeach the president?
Not necessarily, no. You can impeach one, but then
you open a Pandora's box.
You do.
The president has a principal assistant called the deputy. Mm-hmm. How on earth are you going to tar the deputy with a brush and think that that brush will not tar the principal, the actual principal?
No. You see, if like Ndu has read there, if it goes the political route and you're talking about the actual actions and activities of one individual, then those activities may not necessarily tar the other individual. But if you're talking about the performance of functions of government, then that's where it could bring in.
Bear in mind that these things that the deputy is accused of, which one of them can you actually attribute to him directly, and which one can you talk about, which one can you prove? And even if you can prove it to the point of making an arrest, can you prove it to the point where it can actually earn a conviction? Because impeachment doesn't mean that somebody is being convicted, no?
No.
It just means the matter is being brought for discussion in the equivalent of a political court of law.
Right. It means that there is a tinge of, uncomfortability at some point, and there's a question, and this question is then what comes up for discussion. And at the end of the discussion, should they find then that there are grounds through which, all right, we're all in consensus that this individual should be removed, then they take it forward. It's a question. It's just like he said. It's not like the law. It's not like the law where you present evidence.
It's not like the law, but
then,
it's close to the law.
No,
it is very, very close.
It's
to
close,
the law.
but in this case,
grounds for impeachment have to first
there's
of all
clarity.
be looked
There's
at.
a threshold that must be met,
and the speaker must approve that motion.
But we've seen very many cases. We've seen here that procedure or not. We've seen politics playing.
Like where, for instance?
Well, I mean, according to what we saw with the impeachment of the governor of Kiambu.
There were grounds.
Of course, there were grounds, but I think we saw politics playing a very major role here, and people actually, the attention was not focused on the grounds or the legality of it, because they made sure that was taken care of. However, you will see politics come to the forefront, and that's clear.
What that expert is saying is that yes, when it comes to making the final decision, politics will play a part. But when it comes to actually bringing out the motion and putting out the grounds, you have to follow.
Of course, process must be followed, and anybody can come out and say you didn't follow process.
And the constitutional threshold would be, very clear. You have there's a breach of the constitution. There's serious
all these
malpractice.
Accusations against the deputy could amount to allegations. Okay, it doesn't matter which one you look at. You can say you have the evidence, and it'll be the evidence against an individual who will be argued is associated with the deputy. Now, to tie that together to the point where the deputy is culpable, let's see how that goes. And then let's see how far that brush will go.
I think, like you said, anything is possible, I agree. But the fact that this, in the next 2 weeks, James Orengo and the likes are going to bring this, it's not going to happen. I'm willing to bet.
Only time will tell.
I know, but I'm willing to bet. It's not going to happen.
Let's see.
I would like to bet that we do not know what they have and that we do not know what else they may have up their sleeves. I'm simply going by what is the public domain, and if I'm to go by that, flimsy.
If they had something more serious, They'd have actually said, we
No.
have this and we are bringing it next
no,
week.
no.
Not
I
necessarily,
think they're holding their,
Eric.
the
Not
possibility is
No,
it
you
is
guys,
no,
politicians
it is
and
very
what they
possible.
say.
Yeah, sure, but it's very possible that people are holding their cards to their chest.
They are
in
not
this case
holding
because
any
they
cards to their
realize
chest. This is
you
politics.
can't say that with
James
any kind of
Orengo
absolution.
said the same words last year. He said they were going to
It
bring
is
a
okay.
motion.
He could have said it. He could have said it
If they have
10
something,
times.
you'd bring it.
He could have said it 10
If
times
they had
more in the
something,
last 10
they would
years.
bring it. I am
But-
willing to bet. Put your money on the table. Ndu, how much?
You are willing to
10,000
bet. I didn't
shillings.
say I was willing to bet.
I am
I'm
willing to
saying
bet.
in the, yeah, okay.
10,000
well, you may bet
shillings.
against it since
CT.
he offered, but I'm saying in this
10,000
in
shillings
this,
here. In the next 2 weeks, James Orengo is not going to bring any motion against the deputy president. Impeachment? Never.
we'll see.
10,000, I've said.
Never speak in absolutes.
I have said. I am speaking in absolutes. 10,000 bob. No motion of impeachment.
10,000 is kidogo bwana. Make a
Wataka
serious
ni-
bet.
How much do you want?
Start with 100 as we go forward. And I'm talking about 1,000, not 100 shillings.
100 shillings.
No, 100,000 going ahead. Then that's a serious bet.
All right. 100,000. There.
Me, I like this betting. You just say the
I'm
words.
telling you, just put it out there. I'm
No
betting.
money has been
I'm willing
produced.
to bet. No, at all. Put it on the table. Me on the
while
table
we're
is
at
still white. oh.
100,000, me 1 million.
Put it on the table now. Here, table still is white. I
No,
beg
you're unwilling to
Move,
bet. So am I
Joe.
putting money on the table for what?
I beg you.
You are out of the game.
You're
You're out of the game.
I'm not a
I
betting
said-
woman or man. Bring the money.
Everyone
let's-
is a betting individual. They just don't know it. I want to bring to our attention something that appeared on the Saturday Standard. It was the headline was the Corona lockdown, but what caught my attention and what is of interest are the emergency plans that the government has. They said the National Emergency Response Committee unveiled a 120-bed isolation wing at Mbagathi hospitals. Flights to Italy and China banned. 1. 2. Government to meet Matatu owners to discuss stringent steps to contain the virus in case an outbreak in the country. 3. Surveillance enhanced at border points, complete with military patrols. The military patrol bit I didn't get. No cases reported yet in neighboring countries. 4. Government also announces partial travel ban on all government officials. Hotels face massive cancellations and losses. I don't understand partial ban, what it means. However, what I'm pointing out is that the government has at least announced that it is taking some concrete steps to try and just realize or communicate the seriousness with which they are taking the matter of the coronavirus. This previously wasn't present. Now that it is present, we must say, yes, we have seen it, but more needs to be done. Because if you look at page 4 of that same paper, you'll find that one, protective gear is still not available. We still have a shortage of these face masks. And apart from the bed, there are WHO standards that are required to be met in terms of preparedness. We are not at 100%. These are the things that the government needs to assure us and quote WHO as they say, this is the standard and this is where we are. We haven't gotten there yet, but it is clear that something has been done. But we have a long way to go.
There's some movement there.
There's serious movement, but what is still waiting to be done is infinitely more serious than what has been done.
Well,
Are we likely to get there?
If there is a willingness
judgment?
to actually do this thing, then we will get there, because it would be foolhardy to have to see an entire nation more or less being shut down because of this virus. And you think that you are immune from it. One European country has shut down an entire section of its country, that's Italy. 16 million people have been quarantined, to be precise. Why? And what numbers are they talking about? They are complaining about their health system being stretched, and they're saying what they have does not meet the demand. And this is a country that is developed. What happens if it gets to us? This has always been the question. So the preparedness is not something that we should pussyfoot about, or you have a few beds and then you're happy. No. There's a lot more that needs to be done. Remember, if it was possible to have actually allowed people to get tested or to volunteer for testing, one would be in a far better position. The US right now has a problem because of that. They had an opportunity to test, they didn't. Now, one more state, Oregon, has also declared an emergency, and they're locking down the state, so to speak. Why? Because, as they say, now this is not my thinking. No, this is according to the Washington Post. the opportunity was lost because in testing you would have known just a very clear idea of who it is who has a possible infection. And what is of interest is that they were looking for people who had contact with China. In many of these cases, there is no such contact. None. So what is becoming apparent is you don't need to have gone to China or to meet someone who's been to China to have the coronavirus. Now, once this is understood, then why do we, in fact, you could even argue, the only reason why you want to ban certain flights is because it increases the likelihood, because that is where more cases have been reported. But the question still arises. We are talking about a situation where the manifestation of it hasn't been seen. It doesn't mean, neither does it guarantee that the infection isn't in certain individuals.
Right.
Testing and all those things that America is dealing with, it's just a demonstration of something. What is happening in America, what's happening in Italy, in Europe, what's happening in these other countries. I think I'll be raising that as a topic later and talking about how governments are responding to this, and this exposes the systems of government. And I'll be discussing about systems of government later, and looking at China and comparing it to the others in the rest of the world. So this is a situation with Kenya's biggest conversation. Of course, it's at 14 minutes past 6 o'clock. We take a look at weather shortly, and then we continue with the conversation that's on the papers, what's been covered. The standard headline this morning is Isolated, Fight for Survival. President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga were at a city football derby yesterday. The deputy president was in Meru, and for the second day in a row, he was saying that he was fighting a lonely battle in government. What's that lonely battle? It's clear now that people are being threatened, that if you go to the DP's meeting, you will be taken to court. If you are seen with the DP or in his office, or you are his friend, you'll be charged even for no reason. This is me being fought. This is what the DP is saying. Is it true? Is it not true? Well, we'll be discussing that shortly. Good morning. It's 6:15.
It's a warm Monday morning in Nairobi at 18 degrees. Chance of rain later on and thunderstorms with highs of 26 and lows of 17. Taking a look into Nakuru at 16 degrees. A thunderstorm expected there later as well with highs of 26. In Nyeri at 17 degrees, rain will come in with highs of 24 later on in the afternoon. At 14 degrees in Eldoret, rain expected there as well with highs of 22 and lows of 14. In Kisumu, it's cloudy through and through and will follow up with thunderstorms with highs of 27 and lows of 21. At 27 degrees in Mombasa, mostly cloudy conditions today with highs of 33. Taking a look into Dar es Salaam at 26 degrees, clear skies and rain comes in later with highs of 32. In Kampala at 21 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions through most of this Monday morning with highs of 27 and lows of 21, ushering in thunderstorms later on in the afternoon. Down south in Johannesburg at 14 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions with highs of 26 and lows of 13. In Lagos at 28 degrees, it's going to be clear skies today with highs of 36 and lows of 27. Looking on into Europe, in London at 6 degrees, partly cloudy conditions and showers will come through later with highs of 11 and lows of 6. In Paris at 6 degrees, highs of 12 and lows of 6 and partly cloudy conditions. Wrapping things up in New York at 11 degrees this morning, clear skies all through with highs of 13 and lows of 3.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Live streaming is up, www.spicefm.co.ke, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
Mornings done right.
Those are the handles.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
On Twitter, at SpiceFMKE, at CT Muga, at Ndu, or at Eric Latif. Before we go into the story, the headline of both the Nation and the Standard, that's looking back at the Deputy President, there's a story on page 6 and 7 of the Standard. How Golden Scape rode on latest digital farming craze to rob millions. So you've heard that story of this firm called Golden Scape that was, of course, selling the idea of greenhouse farming. So you buy a piece of land and then you invest something, and they're going to put up greenhouses in that piece of land that is huge. And you just bought a plot and you start making returns within no time. Sounded like it's a plausible idea until people realized later that, well, it wasn't. It was just another pyramid scheme.
They were literally just buying an idea.
Yes.
In this case.
A completely different pyramid scheme. Brilliant one at that. But also, I don't understand why it didn't work.
The plan was never to do this for people. I actually don't believe that from the very beginning they wanted to set this up as businesses.
So farming was never going to be the...
No, it was. This was going to be the end result, regardless. It was brilliant in terms of how they carried this out.
The understanding of two things. One, that people will want to turn a profit. At the same time, there's this idea that if something is in a greenhouse, it's very likely to succeed.
And be sold abroad.
Yeah. Especially abroad, and at a very decent profit.
And at a very decent investment amount, because what they were asking for was, under 400,000 shillings per greenhouse as your initial investment. So it wasn't crazy in terms of what people then would be able to invest. What was crazy then was that greenhouses never came out of this.
Actually, the 400,000 is a great deal of money. It's the choice of their target audience.
In terms of the returns and the time within which they would...
400,000 was something that was within their grasp.
Within their grasp, but then also look at the timing. The turnover period was very short, and the percentages that people then would make in profits.
It's a short time to grow tomatoes.
Yeah. In a greenhouse, yes.
But I'm still, still looking back, I'm wondering, why couldn't this work? Because if you think about it on paper...
Why did not just make it work?
Yes.
It would
put up the greenhouses. It's possible to go and have.
This is the thing. I do believe there was some
with somebody who can actually run.
Initially, there were some greenhouses. They actually went, and put up some greenhouses. They did, so that once you go and visit, you have something to see. But I'm saying that yes, it was a fantastic business idea, but it was never their intention to do this. Had it been their intention to do this, it would have been brilliant in terms of a business idea, but it was not a business that people could actually come and see tangible. Let's go. It was never their intention to set these businesses up for people. Nobody would have known that, because if you went for a visit, you saw a greenhouse, it was producing. You saw records of sales, you saw invoices, you saw all of that. There would have never been a reason for you to doubt. Until then, after the year has passed and nothing.
Remember when we had all these pyramid schemes in Kenya? You know why they worked? Precisely because of what you are saying. People actually did make money.
The initial people made money. The first group of people who entered into this, the greenhouse thing, there were some greenhouses there. There were sales being made, and people could testify and say, yes.
Now everybody's making the first. I think the first cut you're getting.
After that,
after you put in 380, you'll get your 150.
Imagine.
Which is possible. Now the second payment is where the issues come in.
No thing.
Okay,
that's a good con.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
It's a good con.
It's very unfortunate if you think about.
Very sad. You can imagine the numbers of people.
I think in some cases, some land buying and selling companies were also duped. By this other side of
or
the
they were involved.
Yeah, maybe they believed it.
But sometimes you can be part of it at the very beginning, or you only told part of the story. So, but these are things that we can only know if further investigation is done and we actually get to know what exactly. Yeah, greater details of what actually happened. Because unless you're going to say that people are easily duped, I don't think so. Usually, everything that is said can be verified and you can feel and know this is true. Now, if someone goes a step further and even pays you 150,000, you will know this thing is working.
Yes, no. They said they were going to pay you, and then they pay you half of your investment. Yeah. Get out of here.
And
of
you
course
have a
you're going
title
to
to your
agree.
land.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're holding a title deed to your land.
It's your
and
land.
You're still making money out of it. You think,
Surely,
well, even if I'm losing, I still have my title
that's
deed.
why I said this thing was a very clever con.
But you're holding a title deed to a 50 by 100 somewhere so deep that a 50 by 100 would never, make sense. Well, it would take a long time to make sense for you.
Yeah.
First of all, the question that I would actually ask is that title deed real?
That's the other question. Don't go there.
Getting into deep and murky waters there when you start asking that question.
Don't go there.
Speaking of deep and murky waters, not what the doctor ordered, how graft has led NHIF to its deathbed. Since it was set up in the 60s as a social safety net, the insurer's true problems have always been endemic. This is in The Nation. On Thursday, May 3rd, 2012, the National Hospital Insurance Fund chairman, Professor Richard Muga, called a press conference to address a grave issue. This is a story, cue the music, held at the NHIF headquarters. He wanted the board to suspend the CEO, Mr. Richard Karich, who had served since 2006. But half the board walked out, and his vice chairman, Mr. Wilson Sosion, would interrupt his address moments later. I have called you here this afternoon to announce to the suspension of the CEO and 5 other officials in view of the latest developments and the complaints we have received on the payments to non-inspected clinics and other issues. Another press conference was then called in 2014, yet another one in 2016, and another one in 2018, 2019, and yes, 2020, to talk about the fact that graft was rife and they really did not know what to do. This goes into the whole spiel about what is really ailing NHIF, and it seems that graft is the problem. Yes.
Have you just heard yourself?
Sorry. I'm telling you what they said. It was not. I'm just telling you what they said.
What else could it be?
And now, before when I told you that the problem was all
The
these,
issue is not really graft.
Oh,
The
you
issue
see?
is who.
Yes.
no, but
is
Of
involved?
course we know it is graft.
but
This
of
guy.
course it's pushed by individuals. It is not. The graph doesn't walk around by
And this
itself
whole
with
thing
3
of
legs.
boards calling press conference and boards, walking out on one another is just showing you where the graft is. That is a pointer to where the graft
Graft
is.
doesn't graft itself.
That's what yeah, exactly.
It has to be perpetrated by individuals.
Yep.
This thing would make a lot more sense if they told us the people, maybe not even individual, don't start there. Start, the rot is in this department. Because this is the department that verifies this. This is the department that does this. Okay. Now, the department that okays payments for these things is this department. From that point onwards, it's not very difficult to determine who heads those departments, and it's not difficult to zero in on these people, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes. And if you have the board of directors, in many organizations, there are board of directors who are more or less put in charge of certain divisions. Again, you know who the board of directors are involved, but telling us it is graft. It's like telling us, it is raining, so the ground is wet. Of course it is. Yes. So whoever wrote that article, we thank them for highlighting what is known to be obvious, but a little more detail would have been useful.
Anyway, so TSC Secretary General, not TSC, KNUT Secretary General, nominated MP Wilson Sosion has penned an article in today's Standard. He says the Teacher Service Commission and Akelo Misori are enemies of Northeastern children. Of course, Akelo Misori is the Secretary General of KUPPET, the rival union. He's basically saying that the Teacher Service Commission and KNU and KUPPET are the ones that have made things not work. Affirmative action was the best way to address shortage of tutors in the region, and it's not secret that in 2018, TSC and KUPPET maliciously and heartlessly derailed a noble proposal by former Education CS Amina Mohammed to lower the grade for joining primary teachers training colleges.
Fine. How exactly do you tie the two to what is happening? Teachers are being killed, it is a fact. Teachers have protested, it is a fact. The TSC as the employer has a mandate to look after the people under its watch. That's what they have done. Better still, those actions have forced a debate about Northeastern that previously people have been sort of like skirting around.
Yep.
So now we can actually look at this problem and say, are teachers union being targeted? The answer will be no. Are locals being killed? The answer again will be yes. Now, what do you do? So it isn't a question of posting teachers. It's a security issue, it's an intelligence issue, and it falls squarely at the doorstep of the Minister for Interior. What is the government doing to ensure that anyone who is in the northeastern province is actually safe? That is the question. And
that
this
is one question.
Yes.
There's also the question of teachers. You
Yes.
see, the NAT Secretary General will deal with issues of teachers.
Yes.
And the issue of teachers has emerged as well.
Yes.
That we have a shortage of teachers, that the non-local teachers are saying we don't want to be posted here.
They've refused.
They've refused. And we don't have enough local teachers to work. So this is the issue he's raising. First of all, NAT has been categorical from the onset. They are opposed to this delocalization of teachers. They say, no, teachers should work the way we've been working. If you're a teacher from this region, work in that region. So this delocalization policy, NAT is against. Oh. And Kupet, of course, is a proponent of that policy.
You know, if you look at just one simple nuance in this discussion, for the longest time, NAT was considered to actually represent primary school teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And primary school teachers, by and large, are localized. The vast majority of people who teach in primary school come from the areas they're teaching in.
Yes.
Until delocalization happened.
Even when it did, you're more or less within the same region. It isn't often that a primary school teacher will be posted from, say, from one county.
Until delocalization happened, C.T. Muga, the teachers that we are seeing complaining and refusing to go to Northeastern are primary school teachers.
Eric,
and secondary school teachers.
Eric.
And they are non-locals.
The Northeastern province is unique in that they do not have enough numbers. You tell me, think of any other county that has had many schools, many teachers. Tell me where they've had this sort of issue. They don't. Think of any other county. Northeastern is unique.
I saw a tweet there. Was it a tweet? Somebody was attending. Yes. I saw a tweet by the Gilgil MP who was talking about a function that she was attending the day before yesterday, I think on Saturday, where she was attending a function because 100 teachers, head teachers, were holding a party to say goodbye to their colleagues who were being posted elsewhere in this delocalization policy.
Eric.
It's actually happening.
Eric.
You know of teachers who work, yes, they work in a certain area, and now they've been posted far and wide.
Eric, the truth of the matter is that very many parts of these countries have many teachers who come from those particular areas. They have them. Now, Northeastern begins with a disadvantage that they do not have what other counties have. They don't have. They actually don't have.
Yep.
So if you talk of delocalization, it is likely that very many teachers will be posted there simply because of that deficit. Nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have enough local teachers and you need teachers, what do? You get others from elsewhere. So even as we discuss this thing, let's distinguish and pinpoint the specific issue. Northeastern didn't have enough teachers. Number one, delocalization for the longest time, forget about the primary school teachers, was a policy of the government even from independence.
It had stopped. It
Yes,
came back.
It got stopped during the district-focused era.
Yes.
Okay? Where now it was let people work. The thinking behind district focus is the same thinking behind the
devolution.
Yes, it is. Essentially, Majimboism. Okay? So that is understandable. The thinking is also understandable. And with the county system, this delocalization has now gained new impetus. It would work wonderfully if you're talking about a situation where all counties were equal in terms of manpower. They are not. Others are already either historically disadvantaged, but they don't have the advantage of other counties.
But this is where delocalization also works very well.
I'm not saying it doesn't work.
Let's assume that Nairobi County has 100,000 teachers, right? And those 100,000 teachers who were originally from Nairobi County are now being posted across the country. And others from Kisumu, from Elgeyo Marakwet, from Kwale are finding themselves working in Nairobi. This is a whole concept of delocalization.
They wouldn't be working if there wasn't a need for their services.
Of course, there's a need for teachers across the country, CT. The issue is transferring them across.
There's a point I'm getting at, and I'm not contradicting what you're saying. I'm saying, let me put it clearer. There are very many issues around this particular matter. And delocalization doesn't solve it. It seeks to find a solution that is acceptable. And in the absence of the insecurity, it would be okay. Because it's clear many Kenyans don't really mind where they work. So long as they think they'll earn a living and they're fine, they're okay with it. It becomes an issue when, one, that particular part of the country doesn't have sufficient manpower to meet even its own basic needs. And my argument was that many parts of the country have precisely that. They have personnel, they have human resource from that very localized place who can meet the needs of that place. So the issue of delocalization isn't even an issue. You could be dealing with an oversupply of personnel. But when a region doesn't even have that, it's a totally different problem. That's really what I'm saying. I'm not against localization. And for the longest time, if you look at it, even now, the bulk of people who teach in our primary schools are from that particular region. Even as we speak now.
Yes.
Yes.
But delocalization has happened. And it has reduced that number. And the whole idea is to reduce that number further.
Let me repeat.
And show
there
that
is nothing
if you
wrong.
are in Homa Bay County, if you come from Homa Bay County, the highest percentage of teachers in Homa Bay County will be teachers from outside Homa Bay County. That's the whole concept of
And I'm trying to tell you, I would like to see that happen.
Okay. Over time. 26 minutes to 7 o'clock. This is a situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We are taking a look at what's covered in the headlines this morning, the Nation, the Standard, and of course looking at the events over the last weekend. Let's take a look at traffic and then we continue the conversation. Good morning.
Let's see what Monday morning has in store. Already total lockdown at Magadi Road, right next to the Multimedia University. This is going to affect traffic then joining Langata Road. There's been an accident there, and that is why there is this hold-up in and outbound. So already on Langata Road today, there is a gridlock, and it's going to require patience waiting for emergency services to take that out of the way to make sure that we have then a smooth flow of traffic thereafter. Mombasa Road, it's dark, but this doesn't take away the fact that there is also a total lockdown as far back as the Way Bridge this morning. It's already mad traffic, and this started as far back as 5:30 this morning. So it's going to be crazy today. We're already asking you to put on your patience hats because that is what you're going to need. Thika Road, all the way from all stops, absolutely crazy already. Right around the bumps at Survey, we know that the construction on the footbridge still continues. You can still use the service lanes for now. We'll see what happens when you then join Kiambu, when you get the traffic joins from Kiambu Road or from Muthaiga in a bit, but now we already know that it's absolutely crazy. Ngong Road still looking good, coming out of Westlands, also not looking so bad either. We'll see what looks like in a short while, but already we know what it looks like. We'll take a look at Jogo Road as well later. Spice FM KE, let us know what you see. Give us a call, and we'll see how we can make sure we keep it moving.
It could be this one.
I can touch the sky. I know that I will.
Or maybe this one.
I'm walking away.
Maybe even this one.
Hit me, baby, one more time.
More of the timeless and greatest hits you love. But
In the court case. Take me to court.
Yeah, if you have nothing to hide, then what's the problem? You have nothing to hide. Court, wherever you want to take me to, at the end of the day, the truth will come out. So, if there's no problem, why do we... The jitters is clear. Why?
I think what this is basically is it's clearly showing that the Deputy President is acknowledging. He's acknowledging the fact that, yes, all is not well in the government. He's acknowledging the fact that, well, yes, we are working, but there are sections of this government that are split.
It took him a minute, but all right.
Yep, he's basically now saying
Finally.
it publicly. When I looked at him speaking during the burial of Sergeant Kenei in Baringo, and this is the same thing that he was saying, this young man was killed. He was basically collateral. These people were trying to intimidate me.
These people being...
Whoever it is, they may have the system. That's what he said. They may have the system. Basically trying to insinuate that there's a bigger power or bigger force within government that does not even, bend a knee to the presidency.
But this is where I find the contradictions. You are elected, you are the Deputy President of Kenya, but every other statement that follows that, you're saying, but I am helpless.
I'm isolated.
So which is which?
It's exposing. It's exposing the deep state issue.
Are you powerful or are you powerless?
Powerless.
In this case?
In this particular case, basically what Ruto is saying is I'm completely powerless. Save for the fact that there's a constitutional guarantee to my staying in office, I would not be in office. Save for the fact that, I have constitutional guarantees of getting my security, getting, the state parks, I would not be enjoying them. But there's a deeper power that's fighting me. There are deeper forces here that are fighting me. This is not something new. We've heard this before. We've seen even reports being produced. People like lawyer Washira Maina has done these things, talking about the deep state. Forces that are behind the power, the throne. What you see, this is not the person who's running the government. There's somebody else who's running the government. And if that person who's running the government does not feel like you ought to be there, you will not be there.
Yeah, but it boils down, it's an assertion. Just like those who he claims are against him would really need to have the evidence if they want to pursue any process of impeachment or any such thing. But the fact that there's this gentleman who died and he worked in the office of the president, we know he died of a gunshot wound. We know. The DCI said he was murdered. We have heard that. We also know from the footage that was shown that he escorted some of these visitors. You can assume, again, that given that he was security detailed, those are certain things that you did. But beyond that, everything that one hears as to why he clearly died of a gunshot wound. Remember, it was first touted as suicide.
Right.
Yep. We don't really know, do we? We also don't know everything around it, who he was speaking to on the phone, on whose behalf he was acting, whether on his own or another. There's a lot. The moment somebody is not alive, there's a lot that you can talk about, you can conjecture, but you don't know because that person isn't there to lend credence.
Or to refute in this case.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if there's evidence, then this discussion would make a lot more sense if the deputy president himself had evidence as to, to prove his case as to what he's saying. And the other part, the other parties that keep alleging that they will fix him and what have you, let us see what they have. Up until that moment, I am refusing to be pulled into this political nonsense completely, because to discuss it is to further it. We heard this discussion when there were allegations of someone wanting to murder the deputy president.
Yes.
Yes. But the unfortunate thing is that we've also had people. There was a guy called Jacob Juma who said people were after him. He died.
He did.
And he was killed.
He was
right?
killed.
We've had cases of such things happening in the country, and what someone alleged was about to happen to him did happen. So it's not something you can take lightly. Now, if you accuse the very state agency whose job it is to investigate these things of being against you, then essentially you're saying no truth regarding this matter will actually come out as it is.
And what you've done is that you laid the ground, or you tilled the ground, you primed it very well for people to say that whatever will come out after you've made such statements would not be true, because of the fact that you have already put out yourself there as the victim. And I think in this case, this is what he's done very clearly and said, look, I'm already isolated. The state machinery is against me. So anything they will say in the future will lend credence to this yet again, that he's a victim, and perhaps they actually are targeting him. We don't know what will come out. We don't know what investigations will bear in the next 3, 4, 5 days or even weeks. However, the ground has been primed for people to already continually see him as a victim, continually see him as isolated. And, I would say from the things that he said over the weekend that if he does have this information and he really doesn't want to feel in a state of isolation or feel the victim, then go and share it with the state agents.
Which? The same ones that are fighting him.
I know, but he said he seems to have information. He has information, clearly. Then,
he would, because if you then share it, he can then claim that I did share this information.
Exactly.
The state agency,
Yes.
and they did nothing about it.
And they did nothing about it in this case.
You see,
I had information, I've given it to them.
see, the
and this could
information that he's
actually,
talking about is not about the murder.
This could actually propel his argument even further. But he did. He was clear. He said, these people briefed me. He was very clear. He didn't mince his words. The three officers in his office, security officers, including this young gentleman, Kenny, they came before me when I came back to the office on Thursday, and they briefed me. We do not know the details of this brief that he was given. He does. So in this case, he also presents himself with a unique opportunity to go and share this information. Truly, if what he's saying is the truth.
He can be questioned by the DCI if the DCI really intends to question him. I think what Ruto is bringing out is not even the issue of the investigation into the murder. He's bringing out the politics of it, and just like he has done with everything, trying to put himself in the middle of it. I think it was really wrong for the deputy president to go and stand in front of a grieving family and make this about
this
him.
soliloquy that he did, unfortunately, was
Make
very
it about
wrong.
him.
He
People
had
are
an
here, they're
opportunity-
mourning somebody who's dead. They're mourning their husband, son, father, daughter. I mean, not daughter, but, brother. Friend. All those people are there to mourn. And then you go there and say, this was just, he was a small person. He was killed because of me. So,
where he
what are
had
you
an
telling
opportunity
us?
to do this in the very beginning, he chose not to. This was not the place to do it.
Remember, the utterances of politicians and what they mean. We'll be looking at this in greater detail. What is certain is that there's a lot more to this story that the deputy president knows and his protagonists know, but we do not. So we are left with the choice of simply guessing as to this is what it might be. But we are not guessing in the dark, really, because our politicians, the Kenyan politicians, leave us a very, very good trail. This one is not even of breadcrumbs, but whole chunks of bread for us to follow and to determine what is they mean by the things that they say.
This is it, eh?
Yes.
All right, so I think that also takes us very well into today's Proverb City. I think it sort of rides straight into this one.
Yes, a roaring lion kills no game.
A roaring lion
Kills no game.
kills no game. That's today's proverb.
That's today's proverb, yes.
A very nice one. At 14 minutes to 7 o'clock, this is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
Makarani na mabroka ambao wanakwenda kwa magavana, wanaenda kwa wabunge, wanapigia masimu MCA. Wewe ukionekana na fulani, wewe ukiwa rafiki wa fulani, tutakufungulia kesi, utapelekwa kotini, utashtakiwa, hata kama una makosa utashtakiwa. Na wanaweka hofu kwa viongozi, kwa wananchi wa taifa letu la Kenya. Hiyo ni siasa duni. And therefore I want to say, for the avoidance of doubt, we live in a democratic nation as Kenya. And citizens, leaders, public officers should
The 90s have never sounded so good.
Favorite songs of the 1990s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Spice FM is
Mature,
broadcasting from
intelligent
Nairobi.
talk every morning.
Mombasa is 7.9.
Spice up yourself.
Kisumu 96.0, Nakuru, Eldoret 96.7,
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
and also
FM,
live
Nairobi.
www.spicefm.co.ke. Live streaming as well on Facebook, Spice FM KE, Twitter at Spice FM KE, and you can find us as well on YouTube. Our channel is Spice FM KE. Taking a look at the headlines, what do you have to do?
Well, Somali leader agrees to meet Uhuru in Nairobi. We saw the whole hullabaloo over the last few days, and the clashes continue. The move has been informed by the trespassing of Somali and Jubaland forces in Mandera, where they fought. Somali President Mohamed Farmajo last evening agreed to Kenya's invitation to visit Nairobi, signaling the calming of tensions that rose last week on Monday. Farmajo, who received President Kenyatta's special envoy and Interior CS Fred Matiang'i in Mogadishu, indicated he would meet with the leader, though the actual date was not yet announced. Followed a meeting between President Farmajo and Dr. Matiang'i's delegation, where he presented an invitation from President Kenyatta. And so we hope to see that, as these bilateral talks take place, easing tensions will be at the end of it all. Pressure from the US, interestingly enough, and mediation by Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed saw the two leaders speak on phone Thursday. A direct call, it was presumed, would help de-escalate the tensions, which observers had warned could benefit the militants. Somalia is due for elections later this year. The US worried a security plunge could jeopardize the plans that include withdrawal of AMISOM.
Ever since Farmajo became president of Somalia, we've had issues. The two countries. We've really had serious issues. If it's about maritime borders, now it's about the support of Madobe and the forces in Jubaland. Now it's about getting to a point where you even have to send an emissary to say, let's talk.
Yeah.
We had this debate when we had Farah Malam in the studio, Mheshimiwa, and we discussed this at length. You see, there's something about our borders that one must acknowledge. The fact that we have borders does not mean that the people who are in those borders actually function as though there's a border. A border could divide relatives. A border, in certainty, divides communities that had previously existed before the borders were set by the colonialists. Now, if there were historical problems before those borders came up, the border is not going to sort of like cut that problem in half. All these incursions we keep hearing of people, whether it is from Moyale, whether it is from Somali, whether it is among the Pokot, these are things that we are dealing with, but they've existed. Now, you have a country, we go into Somali, we had issues, we are still there. Then there is Jubaland. And the discussion is that Jubaland and the administration of it was more or less set up by the Kenya government. And therein lies the issue. Farah Malim explained it and said, so long as Jubaland was being seen as a unit, or they call it a buffer, but was set up and supported by Kenyans, then other people who were opposed to them would automatically then have an issue with Kenya. But we went further because we asked the question of the composition of people who come from the Somali nation, who happen to come from those regions. Could he explain to us the composition of authority and leadership in government? Which clans do they represent? Because if they represent a certain clan in a majority, then it would imply that any decisions that are made by the Kenya government will be seen as influenced by these. So essentially, we have a clan war brought to our doorsteps. The issue may have nothing to do with us directly, but because we are represented, we have a problem.
It's clan wars.
And it continues because the community that is in Mandera is not the same clan as those in Garissa.
Yep.
They're not.
Yep.
So once you understand those differences, for the longest time, these clans have had issues. It's not as though it started with Farmajo. Farmajo did the thing that had last been seen when Said Barre was the president of Somali. He at least got the various clans of the Somali nation together in some sort of government. It hasn't been seen. Now, it would then make him a voice of a large number of people. Now, those dynamics, whether we want to face up to them and deal with them directly, or whether we want to continue their politicking, then that is, of course, yet another discussion.
Let's see what these talks, bring out.
Of course, we know that the ICJ is going to rule on the boundary dispute. And Farmajo himself has said, well, okay, there are other issues like the clan wars that are taking place, the clan conflict. However, we want to let the ICJ decide on this in the meantime. Don't even bring this into the discussion because it has been taken to the ICJ. At that part, we will not be discussing about that. And he's made that very clear, which seems to be a huge bone of contention on Kenya's side to say that, we need to sort out this boundary issue. Of course, realizing that this is a pocket of oil and gas, rich in oil and gas. And that's why we see the United States.
And what if the ICJ decides against Somalia in favor of Kenya? They're going to accept it.
Well, according to them, they are the ones who proposed this case to the ICJ in the first place. They took it to the ICJ and said, look, we're unable to agree amongst ourselves.
They're sitting there with the confidence that because there's a Somali at the head of ICJ.
Yes, of course.
He's going to look at their interests and even forget the law. But
this one, maritime disputes. And there's an issue of natural resources.
It can only be amicably sorted.
Of course, it can be in this case. And you hear, this is where it comes out clearly that Farmajo says, we will come to Nairobi, we'll have a discussion, but we will not talk about this maritime dispute because it's already before the ICJ, with confidence that it will go in the favor of Somalia. it's
that's
nothing. is
no.
impossible.
Then let's discuss the issue of.
So he
Jubaland
says,
and
let's talk
Madobe.
about other things. Let us not talk about this,
Let's talk
especially
about your-
since
your-
it's before the court.
what
Your
are these
forces
other
coming
things?
to fight in
The
Mandela.
clan disputes, and he says, let's talk about other bilateral issues, but let us not talk about this maritime boundary.
But let me ask
There's a
you.
minister who is holed up in a hotel.
And they want for his release as well.
No. They say he escaped from jail
Yes,
in Mogadishu.
Yes.
escaped from
Please
prison.
understand.
Yes.
Why didn't he just come to Nairobi? Nairobi isn't too far away.
He is close to his forces. Basically, he has his forces close to him. That's how
no.
come we have all those.
Now, you see, Eric, you've gone to the heart of the matter. If you ask me, the ICJ was a bargaining tool. If you want something discussed, and the discussions, because we were pussyfooting. Before they went to the ICJ, there had been overtures. We were not showing enough interest.
Yeah.
Yes. So the ICJ now, we have to show interest.
Yes, sir.
So it means that other discussions that previously could not be had, now must be had. But believe me, these are situations that arrive for what you call an out-of-court settlement. It is actually in everybody's interest to have an out-of-court settlement. Because
The maritime border issue.
yes, because the thing you must bear in mind, even with the court decision, there'll be an appeal.
It'll just
And
go
how
on.
long do you think that thing is going to go
It'll
on?
just
for?
go on forever,
Yes.
longer and longer and longer. But this particular issue of the Jubaland, what do you think Farmajo wants in the very end? For Kenyan forces
But they
to pull
don't.
out?
Out, yes. But that's what they've always stated.
So Farmajo wants Kenyan forces out.
Actually, without the Kenyan forces, Jubaland would not be as strong as it is, would it?
But Farmajo wants Kenyan forces out of Somalia.
Farmajo wants control. With the Kenyan forces there, that control.
Why can't he have a conversation with the Madobe and just agree?
Why is it that these clans have never agreed for the centuries that have been in existence?
So he cannot have that control
He could. He could.
for a short time.
He could. Remember, one of the problems with clan issues, there is always the issue of a vendetta. People don't forget or forgive. That's the basic problem. Something that happened 2,000 years ago, someone will talk about as though it happened the day before yesterday.
And as though they
Capulets
were
on the
there.
other.
Yes, exactly.
And as though they were there.
Yes,
So, I mean,
and the retaliation. One person dies, goats are stolen. They sit for a month. Then they kill 10 people. It goes on and
Yep.
on and on and on and on. And then a new generation comes along, they carry out the tradition. And they were not even alive when the first...
They just know it's a
we
pride
can't,
of our clan.
yeah, we can't ignore the fact that there are also benefits that people derive from a state of conflict. That can't be ignored. Elements of control, elements of resources and funding and things like that come into play. So that a loss when conflict disappears. Unfortunate as it sounds, it's the truth.
But a place like Somalia, what sort of aid have they been receiving anyway?
Oh, not in terms of external benefits, but I mean, you can imagine the kind of control somebody would be able to yield if conflict continues, and who then would be
Who's benefiting
benefiting
from all
from
that?
kissing the ring, of course.
The politics of Kenya, Somalia, it is getting to a point where I thought we were the bigger brother of Somalia. I thought, in fact, we were
Of the
working very
region.
well.
This
Yeah,
is the
I thought we
thing,
were working very
yeah.
well with the
Peace
region.
talks.
And then in comes this whole issue, and constantly
But
we
Eric, remember, one of the things that the Kenya Armed Forces have been accused of is not of keeping the peace, but of doing business. They've been accused for just providing a safety corridor for businessmen from Kismayu right into Kenya. That's what they've been doing. And this is the bone of contention, because in their absence, other people will then have the avenue to conduct that business. But so long as they're there, then
it allows.
it's a benefit that seems to
Right,
favor
because the forces
one.
went in initially to fight Al-Shabaab, and after some time this was not taking place, and we find that then a lot of business was taking place. Contention, yes.
So as we end the newspaper review, there's a story here. Afternoons are for workouts for Nakuru women traders. Now, our friends in Wakulima market in Nakuru. So there's a story here about the women in that market. Women who have been taking the time in the evenings after the market closes, they go into exercise mode. So they've been just doing some physical exercises. Started with a group of women who bought skip ropes, and then it picked on from there. And now every evening they have some exercise. One of them, Lillian Yaboke, is saying, in the past 3 months, I have cut weight from 125 to 115 kilos. My target is to reach 80 kilos in the next few months. My legs are no longer as stiff as they were.
Eric, we cannot end this
Interesting
session
story.
without mentioning World Women's Day.
Yesterday's, yeah?
Yes, because it highlighted not only the names of women who have achieved greatness and who have been pivotal to the development of Kenya, but they've also outlined, from pages 2 in the Standard to 12, outlined the individual achievements, some of the battles that these trailblazers went through, and what it is they've had to do to get to where they are. And then there was a section where men whose lives were changed because of the mothers they have or women who influenced them. And then again, it highlighted, and it's a cross-section of women right from the time of independence right up to now. So it is worth mentioning.
Very good. And it was a very, incisive coverage by the Standard yesterday.
Oh, yes, it was.
Indeed, this is the situation with Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting from Nairobi to Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. My name is Eric Latif. We have Ndu Oko and CT Muga. We've been taking a look at the headlines. Shortly, we'll be switching gears a little bit and taking a look at other stuff that's happening around the world and, of course, of interest globally and locally. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Thika Road seems to have gotten worse in the last half hour, all the way from Roy Sambu. Use an alternative route to town if you can. Outbound, you might want to consider the Eastern Bypass and use that as an option because it's crazy. Diversions along Thika Road, Garden City. Driving is taking a huge mess here. A disaster in waiting, unfortunately. School buses, 2 vehicles have crashed on Thika Road already, and it's rather thick. All right, on Mombasa Road as well, coming all the way from the Cabanas now, there's a part there where it's quite blocked up. Trying to get down towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout might take you a while today. Magadi Road today is hell. Jam starts at Quarry Market all the way to the Galleria Mall, and this then affects traffic on Langata Road, coming from Karen and then down towards the T-Mall roundabout at an absolute standstill. Not moving this morning, folks. An exercise of patience is what is going to be required today. In Westlands, not so bad coming through to the Westlands roundabout and then into the city centre. You should be fine. Kiambu Road already 6 lanes, likely to become 2, but probably not for another 2 hours or so. We'll take a look what it looks like there. Jogo Road, we still have that construction taking place in industrial areas, so we have a spillover to Jogo Road, and then trying to get into the city centre will not be too fun. I know we're starting the week on a low, but let's see how we can be patient. Tell me what you see, Spice FM KE, and we'll try and make it a little bit bearable for some people this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned
Very good morning to you, and thank you very much for tuning in
a man who
to
believes
Spice
in
FM.
punching up,
And every
not
morning,
down.
this is the Situation Room, broadcasting
This is the Situation
live
Room,
from Nairobi
the
each and every
only way to
weekday,
start your
6
day.
a.m. to 10 a.m. There's some breaking news that's coming, of course, this morning. This is the death of the MP from Msambweni, Suleiman Dori Ramadhani, who has passed away this morning. He was in ICU. He'd been hospitalized. Unfortunately, he's passed on. This is the MP for Msambweni in Kwale County, Suleiman Dori. So, Nduoko, shall we take us to Cote d'Ivoire?
Right. Things happening in Cote d'Ivoire this last 3 days is that we hear the Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara will not have his name on the ballot in October for the presidential election. He's justified his decision, and he says that he was respecting and honoring his commitments and saying that he wanted to leave this position on to the younger generation. I'm going to quote something here, and he says, "Throughout my career, I've always attached particular importance to honoring my commitments. Consequently, I have decided not to be a candidate in 2020. And a couple of days ago, he says it has been an honor then to serve my country." And he was directly speaking to 352 parliamentarians. The importance of that could then not be overemphasized. And he said he would then say he would not be a candidate in October 2020. And this means that he wanted to leave it for those who could offer something more to the country. It was expected that Ouattara would say that he wanted to see some kind of constitutional reform in the country and have legislators make it possible then for him to add on a third term or a fourth or a fifth, like what we see with many presidents on the African continent. But he said, you know what, here's an opportunity then for me to leave the reins to somebody who might be able to carry the day. Unfortunately, we see that it could be that the likes of Laurent Gbagbo would then come in and ask for a seat yet again at the presidency, or a gentleman like Henri Bédier who would come in and say, look, I want to also try and run this country. It was said that if Ouattara heard that these two gentlemen would run, he would then come back and say, I want an opportunity. But even with this, where he saw that these two men bungled the country or bungled the laws and economy of Cote d'Ivoire, he said, still, I want to give up my position and I want to say that somebody else can actually come in, take the reins and move this country forward. Here we see a lesson that can be learned from very many. You see that things may be going wrong and you want an opportunity to still be at the helm or hold the reins and apply serious levels of control. The control in this is very clear to me. The control and the power lies in the hands of the man who's able to, or a woman, who's able to say, I can see things still going in an Ori fashion. I've been here for 10 years. However, the power lies in being able to say, I'm going to step down and let somebody else give it a go. And it's a lesson that many African leaders can learn from, to say that it's sweet, I've been here for a long time, but the opportunity is ripe for somebody else to come and try. With what he's been able to do, with the sentiments that he's put across, and we have wide acclaim from the opposition, from other members of parliament within Cote d'Ivoire who said what this man has done is actually quite commendable, and this can also be learned from leaders across the continent. There are many who commended his decision and said, you know what, we actually didn't expect it. We expected the opposite. And I think within his country, citizens of Africa would have said, you know, we expected a president or a leader to then change the constitution so that they could stay there for a further term. But we were actually quite shocked. Isn't it funny that you have people who would say, we expected the opposite, which would be the norm. But you know what? It's an expression of a great man, a man of honor. Now that he has everything to stay in power, he's leaving. This is a lesson for all African presidents and former presidents to say that you had an opportunity and the power actually does remain in your hands when you step down.
What does the Constitution say? How many terms should a president serve? Is
2.
it open?
Oh, no, it's 2 terms.
So he's already done his 2 terms.
He's done his 2 terms.
So this thing of him saying, I have decided, was not his decision.
It was his decision. However,
the Constitution is clear.
We've had many constitutional reform that would bring in a situation where a president then would be able to add on a third term, or a fourth, or a fifth, or lifetime term. Look at what's happening in Cameroon. Look at what's happening in Burkina Faso. Look at what happened in Zimbabwe. Look at what's happening in Uganda. People are either deciding to take control by force or make sure that they change the constitution. And by virtue of the fact that they're in that position of power, they can do that with
He's
influence,
done a good thing.
with political influence.
What I'm raising
with
here
political
is that thing of saying, I have decided. It's like, you know,
No. He could have made the opposite decision as well. He could have said, well, you know what? I've seen that this country is not going in the direction in which we want it.
And that would be the odd thing to do.
No, the odd thing
right
is
thing
what
to
he
do
did.
Is what he has done.
The odd thing, which is outside of the norm, is what he has done.
No,
by saying that I am not going
outside
to...
the norm for?
for African presidents by saying I am not going
So
to
let's
continue.
look at Daniel Arap
That's
Moi,
saying I
let's
am
look at
not.
Mwai Kibaki,
That's saying
let's
I am
look at
not going to
Nyerere,
continue. I'm not
Jakaya
going to.
Kikwete,
I'm not going to
Ali
continue
Hassan
sitting in
Mwinyi,
power.
Benjamin Mkapa.
I am not going to continue sitting in power here. And this is what was. I'm talking about Cote d'Ivoire now. This is what was expected. This was what expected by the opposition.
who?
By the opposition in government. And they said, actually, this is what we knew was going to happen. We knew that in March 2020, we were going to see the bay for referendum and changes in the constitution. It is actually very shocking to us. You can imagine an opposition saying, it is very shocking to us that he's actually said, you know what, I'm not going to get into this circus. I am actually going to say, forget it. Constitutional reform will
That's
still...
what they wanted to use as their campaign.
Constitutional reform will still happen.
thwarted.
He's basically just played them.
Constitutional reform will still happen, by the way. But it is interesting that he has said here that part about making sure that terms be increased or can be increased, forget about it. Constitutional reform is still taking place
He's
in Cote
done a
d'Ivoire.
good thing. He's just not, been a benevolent. He can't say that, I've been benevolent. This is what I ought to have. I have.
Interestingly
decided
enough,
to
he's
do
not
for
the one
Nigeria.
who he's not the only one who's saying it. The
I have
people
de-
around him who
I
are
have
saying it.
decided that I am not going to be a candidate. What do you mean you have decided? The constitution, the law is clear that you are not going to be a candidate anyway. You can't come up and tell us that you
the
have
anomaly
decided.
would be him sticking to power.
Yes.
Because
The anomaly.
Yes.
he would be going against the constitution.
And
He'll be going against the expectation of the law.
I am saying that there are many cases where that has happened on the continent. Very many
And we're
cases.
saying...
And
they
let's
were-
not just
and
narrow
we
it down to the continent, by the way. This conversation and narrowing it down to the continent sometimes paints us in a bad light. Angela Merkel did the same thing.
Put it around the world. That's okay.
Good.
You can put it where you want to put it at the end of the day.
Good.
You can't say that just because a country is on the Western Hemisphere, that means that it changes anything. No, absolutely not.
It's a global thing. So when you look at it globally, this is what he has done is what is expected, what's normal around the world.
Now that he's leaving, is Cote d'Ivoire a better country?
Oh, he's not left yet. He's still in power.
Still has 2 years, right?
No. The election is in October this year.
Yes,
Right.
but
Yeah.
is Cote d'Ivoire changed?
Now that he's not left yet.
No.
He's how do you
Has-
describe his 2 terms?
Yes.
The achievements of the 2 terms of his presidency.
Has he put Cote d'Ivoire on a proper footing?
Well, if you want to take it from Laurent Gbagbo, who was there before him, definitely the economic status of Cote d'Ivoire is in a better state than it was, and this is widely accepted around the world in West Africa that the country has actually done much better with what it's been able to talk about being the largest cocoa producer in the world, and then now even seeing some of these proceeds benefiting the people of the country, whereas previously it was not. The French barons having said to have ruled in terms of what was happening with this particular export, now seeing some of that economic power transferring down to the people of Cote d'Ivoire. Absolutely, you've seen change and you've seen that done. And it is upon this that he said, yes, we've done well, we've made some strides, we've gained some mileage politically. However, I could sit here, I could continue. There's so many things he could do in terms of, and with people who are supporting him around the seat of power to say, actually, let's change this and say that this fellow can sit around for a few more. But no, okay, let's give somebody else the chance to do this.
Yeah, there's something Eric has alluded to that we must look at. When an African leader does something that is right, why was to look at it as though it's a miracle?
Because the norm
It's
is the
not the
absolute
norm.
opposite. Because we expected it to be different.
It's
This is
not
the
the
thing.
norm, Ndu.
For that reason alone, that's how far we've
We're
gotten.
expecting it because
That's how
he had
far,
announced.
No,
he's
no.
the one who had
That's
announced
how
last
far.
year.
No.
He had
That's how
threatened.
far. That's how far we've gotten to the point whereby you would expect somebody to make a change. The people in Cote d'Ivoire actually saying this same thing.
There was a constitutional
They are
reform in
saying
2016.
They are saying this same thing, that they actually expected that with this reform that is taking place this year, that there would be changes in the constitution to see that a president could actually take the 3rd term. This is what they were expecting. And by virtue of the fact that he turned around and said, I am actually not going to do this, that is why it was different.
This thing started with Alassane Ouattara himself threatening last year that he was going to run again for an
Exactly.
unconstitutional 3rd term. He is the one who was being awed last year by saying, you know what, I'm going to run next year. If I hear that these guys are going to run again, I'm going to put myself in. Yet the constitutional reforms that they had in 2016 had clearly set a time of 2 terms. And then he'd come in to argue, now that the constitution has come in the middle of my term, let's reset the clock. Let's start my term in the next election. he had tried to play those games, and we've seen those games being played. Now that he's done the right thing, this is not, something we should say, oh, we praise you, thank you very much for accepting to cede power. It was.
I think it is an example.
The people of Ivory Coast have said, you shall serve 2 terms. The people, through their constitution, you shall serve 2 terms. Now, when you come in and you serve your 2 terms and saying, I'm not going to run, you're not expected to run.
I think he did a good thing in this sense that he set an example of how it can be. Whether your desires or wants or wishes were totally different, the absolute opposite previously, and you've still been able to come full circle and say, you know what, whether it was pressure, whether it was an epiphany that you had, whether it was actually seeing that the country could do better, whatever the reason you want to apply for it. At the end of the day, he still made the decision to say, I am not going to do it. Unconstitutional, constitutional, whatever the case may be. This is an example because many have done the opposite and said, well, you can think whatever you want to think.
How many?
Oh, we have other people. Well, look at what's happening in Uganda. Look at what's happening in Zimbabwe. Who stands out?
54 African states.
54. Who stands out? Who stands out as the people who stick in power? And you continue to say, Cameroon,
why don't we look at those that leave? Tanzania has not had this issue.
And?
Never. For very many years.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't had. Never. They had issue
how often does it come to your mind that because when we talk about
because we've been primed, and I keep saying this is a Western media thing. We've been primed to look at Africa. Oh, it's a country where it's a continent where people cling on to power, and then look at Uganda, look at Zimbabwe, come on, look at Kenya.
They're not false examples.
Kenya, we have had elections.
They're not false
Since
examples.
1992 multi-party elections, we've had presidents serve 2 terms, leave.
Out.
2 terms, leave. Uhuru Kenyatta has already said, look, I have until 2022. I am tired. I am done. I'm leaving. It's clear. Look, countries around.
Still, it's hard for you to
Who
use
had an election the other day and they went to, was it Zambia or was it that they went to the Supreme Court and they have to have another election?
It was Malawi.
Malawi, right? Look at those countries. Let's look at those ones. Let's not, always focus on look at Uganda, look at Cameroon, come on.
In this case, we're focusing on Cote d'Ivoire, and we're saying that in this case, the gentleman has said he's going to step down. And this is the same thing that
he's
you're saying.
He's not stepping down. His term is coming to an end.
The gentleman has said he's not going to throw his hat in the ring for presidential election in 2020.
He shouldn't even be having this conversation.
Yeah, but he is having the conversation, and he's saying that whereas it could be,
you sound
whereas
it
could be that I could make reforms constitutionally, or that I could get the people around me to push this particular agenda, I am not going to do it. I am saying that at this point, it is something worth noting.
I doubt
at the end of the day, it is something worth noting.
A politician doing about turn like that, there's something he knew.
He has been pressurized.
Yes, this thing wasn't going to fly. He knew it.
He is the one who started by saying, I want to run again. And why? Because it's possible that Laurent Gbagbo is going to run it.
And then decided that he's not going to.
He shouldn't even be having this conversation.
Shouldn't. But is.
We should not even be having this conversation.
But we are, and it is
you
very
doing
important
what you're supposed to have done anyway.
Exactly.
Done.
And that's what should come to the light.
If
that is the point that should come to the light, that you're doing what you should be doing. That is the thing that we should get people to see.
Let's take a short
understand.
Break and take a look at weather. CT, remind us today's proverb.
Let me paraphrase it for you. A lion that roars should not expect to catch any prey. I'm paraphrasing it for you. A roaring lion will not catch prey.
Will not catch prey.
No.
16 minutes after 7 o'clock, this is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi today. Showers expected through most of the day with highs of 20 and lows of 17. The sun will peek out at some point, but not for too long. In Nakuru at 16 degrees, thunderstorms expected later with highs of 26. In Nyeri, mostly cloudy conditions at 17 degrees. Rain expected with highs of 24 and lows of 16. It's mostly cloudy in Eldoret at 14 degrees. Thunderstorms coming through later. In Kisumu at 20 degrees, it's mostly cloudy and will be followed by rain. In Mombasa at 27 degrees, partly cloudy conditions with highs of 33 and lows of 27. And in Malindi at 28 degrees, partly cloudy, chances of showers later on. Dar es Salaam at 27 degrees. Mostly sunny today. Rain expected later with highs of 32 and lows of 20. It's cloudy in Kampala at 21 degrees. Thunderstorms later with highs of 27 and lows of 21. In Johannesburg at 14 degrees. It's mostly sunny today with highs of 26 and lows of 12. Rounding things out in Lagos at 28 degrees. Highs of 35 and lows of 27.
Cranking up the volume
It's the best.
with the greatest hits ever. .4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So the constitutional term of Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara is coming to an end this year. and
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
Third term.
After
Those-
many other declarations. So now this is what we hear. And I cannot just pay attention to what he's saying now without focusing on what he had said previously. That's why I'm saying this is a man who realized that some of the things he may have desired or thought he would do, he can't do, or with dire consequences. So he does what a smart politician will do: tuck your tail in between your legs,
and step.
do a complete about turn, and declare yourself a national hero.
Or should do. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In this case,
There's
absolutely
everything-
nothing wrong with that.
That actually
Because-
is what is wrong, because this culture of people who are paid to do a certain duty, expecting us to herald them as leaders because they're doing what they were paid to do in the first place.
That's what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, that's his job. Steer the country for 2 years if you can, or
Two
one
terms.
term or another term, and then let somebody else come in. That's the understanding. And then because you now can't get a third term, or you realize it's going to be really difficult, politicians rarely leave power unless it's traditional and it's understood and it's been accepted. We in Kenya, it's now accepted. It's understood. In Nigeria, it's understood. North, South. Who you choose, that's a different one, but it's North, South.
South.
It's understood. And so the
And the
president...
term is clear.
Yes, and they rotate. The presidency rotates.
Why do you think they do that?
Because they've understood what's good for the country.
They've normalized.
And,
They've become the norm.
and you dare not try to be clever that because you're in the South now you want another term. That won't happen because there'll be dire consequences. It is from that premise that I'm saying this gentleman understood that trying to roll back time may not necessarily work in his favor. So it is just better to go by what people had agreed. Politicians tend to be very keen in understanding what is in their interest and also promoting it. Look at this. A term comes to an end, the man is suddenly presenting himself as the hero of Cote d'Ivoire. Whereas he's just a president whose term is coming to an end.
Against the backdrop of someone like Laurent Gbagbo, who said previously that, okay, you know what, even when Ouattara won this election in 2010, you still had the conflict where we saw people died in 2010 because Gbagbo wanted to, hold a
Stay
coup.
on
He
and
wanted to
cling onto
stay and did not want
Aha.
and wanted to cling onto power and hold on to power.
But you see the consequences of
and
it.
Here you
Where
see,
did he end up, by the way?
of course, at the ICC, for which he was acquitted, all right. However, here we
And
are
out
with
of
the
office.
same and out of office, and of course wanting to come back. Whether he will be allowed to according to constitution and all of this is a totally different kettle of fish. But here it is very clear. For whatever reason, the man has said he is not going to put his name on the presidential ballot. Constitutional reforms or not, can you see the difference this would do with when Gbagbo was leaving in 2010 and when he is leaving in 2020? Not going to be tinged with any kind of controversy, not going to be tinged with 3,000 people dying, not going to be tinged with anybody being taken to the ICC because they wanted to hold on to power as if their life depended on whether he saw the light, whether he had an epiphany, whether his politics did not work for him at the end of the day. He's not going to put his name on the ballot. And this, regardless,
context of where the country is
regardless of
coming
the
from.
reason, is what he is going to be remembered
Okay.
for.
Looking at it from the context of where the country is coming from, from Laurent Gbagbo, from that disputed election, from the violence that ensued, from everything else, we can say that the people of Ivory Coast are the better, right,
Yes.
today. But we shouldn't be elevating Alassane Ouattara and saying, oh, thank you very much, Alassane Ouattara, you are the Messiah. No.
Not the Messiah. He's going home. He's not bringing
No,
anything.
but this is we're looking
He's
at
done.
it and saying this is good.
What
it is.
what
It
what
is
I
good.
would
It is.
what
It
I
is
would
a
like
good
to
thing
know
for Ivory Coast.
is
It
what
is.
he has negotiated. That's what I'd really like to know, because
It's likely that the prime
When he was
minister,
po-
it's likely
when-
that
when he
his
was-
current prime minister is going to run, Koulibaly. It's likely that he's going to run for president.
who's prime minister?
He is-
Ouattara's
the,
prime
the current,
Who appointed him?
Ouattara.
the current prime minister is likely that he
No,
will run for. If it's likely that
I
he will
asked a
run,
question
that's
which
why I
you're-
said he's.
which you're avoiding.
I'm not avoiding. I said very clearly he's prime minister appointed by him. I said it clearly. It is
No, you
his.
said his, not appointed by him. I'm the one who
Okay,
asked
I'm
the
saying it
question.
now. Appointed by him.
Yes. So
Uh-huh.
who's still in power?
So this thing of Alassane Ouattara talking last year and saying, you know what, you guys, if these guys come in, I could put myself in the ballot for the next one. I could even push for constitutional reforms. This was just him. It was a negotiation.
Yes.
With
It was the
whom?
beginning of a negotiation with the people, with whoever.
Believe me.
Whoever he
At
has
the
had
end of the
talks
day,
with.
at the end of the day, it can't be. You can't take away from the integrity of the fact that here people are saying he could have forced his way.
You're
in.
using the
He
word
could-
integrity with
he
reference
could-
to politicians.
integrity of the
the
fact,
facts.
not integrity of the general atmosphere
Which
of the fact.
Which fact?
The fact that people are okay with this. Whether there was animosity previously, they're very okay with the fact that he has stepped down and are lauding him for this and saying that he could have pushed. Whether people around him, whoever is in power, could have pushed and said, you know what, regardless, let's do this anyway. For whatever reason,
You know what
whether
you're
he
sa-
was,
you
whether
know
he
what
was,
I'm hearing, yeah?
whether he was pushed into a corner, whether he tried something and it backfired, at the end of the day, boots hung. I am not going to put my. I'm not.
No,
And let somebody
Who
else.
told you to put? You're the one who said, I'm going to put myself, and then I'm not going to put myself. Oh, come
It-
on.
After realizing,
No,
for whatever
you know,
realization,
essentially-
for whatever
essentially what
realization
you do is
came to the
telling me,
fore.
if I'm to interpret it correctly,
Yeah.
every beginning of term, when my children realize I have paid their school fees, they should sing for me.
Yes, now you allow them to go to school.
No, you should threaten
You
them
could have
towards
said
the
no.
end of the term and say, you know, next time you
I
guys,
wouldn't-
I'm not going to pay your
And it
school
happens
fees.
all the time.
I am not going to pay your school fees
But
next
doesn't
time.
it- because of the
And
way
then
in
at
which
the
you're
beginning of the
ahead.
term you pay school fees.
Thank you, Daddy. Yes,
Come
taking you
on.
to the promised land. Yes, in this case, and this is the thing: the norm in which, the way in which it should be, is what we are looking at here. For whatever reason, the underbelly of all of it, whatever that is the way it should be. Your 2 terms have come to an
that
end
we've agreed.
constitutionally. Yeah,
That's
go
how
ahead.
it should be.
Yes. So now he
So
could
this
have.
should- this
he
is-
No,
could-
no,
he
she doesn't
could-
agree with you,
he
Eric.
could-
This is not an issue.
She's sticking to forming a choir for this man. It should be but form a choir.
This
We
is
must
not
thank
an
you for-
issue. This is
Yeah.
exactly what should have
We
happened.
cannot thank you for something we pay you
Not
to do.
even the man. The idea that you
Jakaya
say.
Kikwete served, left. It's how it should be.
Here's another
Do
one.
we talk
who-
about, Jakaya
here-
Kikwete has
Here
left?
is another one.
No.
Here is another one who served and is leaving. And I'm saying this is what should be glorified.
So it's not
This is
news.
what should
No,
be.
not
it's
glorifying.
Glorifying it.
another.
Not
and
glorifying.
this is what we
Why are we
should.
glorifying
No,
it?
it shouldn't.
Yes,
should
it
be
should.
He has served his
It
2
should.
terms.
You don't
Because we
glorify
see-
the norm.
Because we see a lot of cases where the opposite is the
But
the
are you,
practice
are
and
you
is the
aware
norm.
that when you laud it, you're exacerbating it? Because you're making the guy feel he's done something extra special and he hasn't. If he won on a certain platform, all you can say is this is a truthful man. He said he was going to do this, he has done so. But we know otherwise. Prior to this declaration, he had said other things. And unless we say the man was in a humorous mood, and when he was saying
He was
these
just
things,
joking.
he was just joking and pulling our legs.
Or maybe he's joking and pulling your
a
legs
nice
down
presidential
and will
joke,
actually-
which we should understand.
Yeah.
No, no. Where
Here's a
the
president who had threatened to actually become unconstitutional and seek a 3rd term.
And then now has not.
yes. So what has happened? It is that he's become a nice person. No, he has understood, and he has
He has
negotiated,
read the mood.
and an arrangement has been arrived at. That, to me, seems to be a more plausible reason. Politicians, by their very nature, are not people who you want to trust with something as delicate as benevolence, unless it benefits them very directly. Not really. Self-interest is usually the currency.
Yeah, in this case, at the end of the day, it benefits the country. We've talked about self-interest many times.
Self-interest, yeah, is him.
Yes, of course. But self-interest, many times you'll find that there are other benefactors even of this self-interest. We've talked about nations perpetuating certain things for their self-interest. There'll be benefactors that come along the way. In this case, Cote d'Ivoire also, self-interest or not, removing himself from the ballot, there are ways in which this country is going to benefit. if they get a leader who is going to take that particular country moving forward. If they do, the benefactors will be the people of Cote d'Ivoire as well.
But we already know who is going to be his favorite candidate. His prime minister.
We are not assured of his victory.
Whom he appointed. Allow me to ask the question. If he is the president and he has the instruments of state, and he is an appointed prime minister, somebody whom he favors, who do you think is likely to win?
Because of what factors?
They are still in charge.
Yes.
The likelihood of somebody of his choice winning is still high. We've had cases where this hasn't happened, but it's the anomaly. What often happens is that the person who is selected is usually agreed upon and arrangements are made. So you go to an election, but an understanding has already been arrived at.
I think that whatever we're looking at here, whatever cases, we don't know the reasons why. We would have cases where one president stepped down for whatever reason, and now
how many presidents do you know who stepped down on this continent?
And followed the train of rhyme or reason for whatever the particular situation was, right? You don't know the reasons why individuals stepped down. You don't know. This could be the case. You don't know who was putting pressure in what area and said, you actually need to step down because you said you were going to, or whatever did not work in your favor. We don't know the intricate details of why. But we're saying that if it forms a trend where more leaders are stepping down, realizing that they've come to the end of their term and they're following the constitution of the country, absolutely, that is the way it should be.
It is not forming a trend. The trend has been that.
Because if we have the opposite, it doesn't help.
And neither is he stepping down.
It's his term.
He's not going to run. His term is coming to an end. He's not going to run for the presidency again. We don't know the intricate details of why other countries, why their presidents did not put their name on the ballot yet again.
That we're not giving up on our perspective.
Oh, neither am I. Is that not clear either?
No, it isn't clear.
It's very clear that I'm not giving up. And I'm saying that if we have more and more cases of this is actually what should be the norm. And people should actually not be surprised.
But this is
people
the norm.
should not be surprised. People should not be surprised when things like this happen. We're not even talking about just in Africa.
Repeat
people
that
are
again.
Surprised.
People should not?
People should not be surprised that this has happened.
Thank you.
This is what
don't be surprised.
No.
That's what we're telling you.
I am not surprised. You're not getting what I'm saying. I think you're not clear. I am not surprised, and I'm saying what he has done is what should be the norm. Is what
it
people
is
should.
The norm.
No, you have too many. You have other cases.
How many?
You have too many cases where people have stayed in power, and people say, "Oh, well, we're in a position of oppression. We feel as if this needs to come to an end."
Those many other instances that you're talking about.
Let's start. One.
Let's take a break and look at traffic. And when we come back out of this traffic, you'll tell us. Out of all the African countries, how many are these that
and why they stand out specifically?
Not why they
and
stand
what
out.
And why they're remembered. And I keep telling you, the negative is what is remembered.
So that it becomes the norm.
Should be, but it actually isn't.
If it is the norm, then those ones that you're going to count will be the majority. If they're not in the majority, then it's not the norm. The norm is that people serve their terms and they leave.
I am talking about what is being remembered. What is remembered. What people remember.
People choose to remember what they choose to remember.
Because that is what
and I am saying this morning that we should be choosing to remember not what the Western media keeps feeding us, that you Africans, your presidents don't leave office. Presidents leave office in Africa. That should be the norm. And that's the message we should be sending. That in Africa, we hold elections. People leave, people come, people go. 7:30. Good morning.
Langata Road today is a mess. This was an accident that we saw earlier on Magadi Road, and this affects Langata Road coming from Karen right around the Bomas of Kenya all the way down to the T-Mall Junction. You might want to just take a chill pill because this is not moving. Mombasa Road from Simba Cement towards Athi River, very smooth until you get roundabout to the Siokimau SGR area, and then that slows down. Thika Road along is terrible this morning, all the way from Roy Sambu to Utali College. I think that we'll see this opening up just a little bit in a short while. Smooth all the way from Githurai, but at TRM you get stuck just a little bit. Outer Ring Road from Pipeline towards Donholm, moving very slowly this morning. So let's see what it looks like in a short while. Spice FM KE, let us know what you see, and then we can open it up. 0719012600.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
This conversation. My name is Eric Latta. We have CT Luga and Indio who is taking us to Ivory Coast today. And the president
Mornings
comes to an end. This year has said he's not going to put himself up for re-election next year, as he had threatened last year.
This year?
He had threatened last year.
No, next year election is this year election.
This year's election, yeah, later this year. So we're looking at what is normal and what is not normal. So Uganda,
Cameroon, Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe, what?
How long did he stay in power?
Well, yeah, that's so he's gone. He's left. We have a new president next.
That's what you remember. This is what I'm saying. Whether there are 3 or 4, this is what you remember, and we can't take away from that.
Why do you choose to remember those 3?
I don't choose to remember. That is what is clearly it's what you will remember when you see, and you know that this is the case. That people stay. Burkina Faso, for example, the last 20 years. These are some of the things that you see, and we understand, and we know that is what is remembered. This trend of then releasing power is something that is new. It's a trend. It is something that is practiced over time. And I say that at this point, this is what should be. And when we see more and more cases of this happening, this is then what we should remember.
In that whole Western African side, we're looking at now Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast has a constitution that says 2 terms. So a president is leaving 10 years after the other disputed election where there were issues. So let's count that. Okay. All right. You've just told us about which other country you just mentioned that?
Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso. Now, the other countries, okay, Cameroon.
But by
Cameroon,
the way,
Central
this
West.
Zimbabwe we speak of actually in theory has a limit. It's a 5-year, 2 terms. Right? Now, there are countries on this continent that don't have any limits to their terms. And these are Chad, Cameroon, Comoros, Djibouti, Gabon, Gambia. Lesotho, of course, has a king. Morocco, of course, has a king. Mauritius. Now,
they don't have a constitutional term limit.
No, it's unlimited. It's unlimited. So, even the ones we are speaking of, the ones whom we know have a term limit, but keep trying to play around with it. And then there are those who have 6-year terms, 2 terms, but they all have 2 terms. Even those with 7-year terms have 2 terms. Okay, for instance, you see, when we say unlimited, it's that in theory, you're supposed to be there for 7 years. The term is 7 years, but it's unlimited. Meaning there's nothing that forces you. When you have a constitution that actually limits you, because that's what it does. It says 2 terms constitutionally, that's it.
You are
and
not
each term
eligible.
is X number of years. After that, thank you. You are not eligible. It doesn't matter whether you like, don't like, you cannot stand again. Now, when people try to play around with this, I know we keep saying that this continent takes the cup for it. Someone should just take a pause and look at the rest of the world. And you'd find we're not doing as badly as people imagine that we are.
Yeah.
That's number 1. Number 2, many of these Western countries have pre-rigged systems.
That allow people to stay on.
Yes, it's pre-rigged. When I say pre-rigged, this is what I mean. They fool you with this constant changing thing at the prime minister level.
Yeah.
But the real leadership of the country remains the same. The people who actually decide what's happening remains the same. If you look at the collegiate system, for instance, in the United States, I call it a pre-rigged system, meaning the plebiscite go and vote, but you are not the one who's deciding. So then why are we voting in the first place then? The popular vote doesn't determine who's going to be president.
Well, to give people a sense that they participated in this popular
Pre-rigged.
thing. Yeah.
That's what I'm telling you.
But you're saying that you're asking the question that why do people vote? To give people, it's clear, to give people a sense that they were they were involved in this process and that they participated. The collegiate system is made just for that. That, you know, at the end of the day, you can go ahead and do what you want to do, but we're going to sit and have a discussion amongst ourselves. The higher ups in terms of elitism, the higher ups in terms of know-how of a political system, then we'll make the decision. Thank you very much for what you've told us. We will carry this further.
You see, where I'm going with this discussion is what Eric was trying to say. We need to be careful. You remember the talk we had about questioning the things you read. Don't let the Western media fool you into thinking that everything they tell you is true. It's not. The country in the West that I know has the closest to a complete democracy is Switzerland. The canton system. You know it's going to rotate. It's understandable. And the other thing about other parts of Europe also is that a member of parliament is precisely that. It's like a volunteer position where people elect you and then they pay you a decent enough salary. It isn't more than other civil servants, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now, the anomaly in our politics is because our politicians are kings. Some are demigods. And we've allowed it for the longest time. That's why when this demigod makes a false pronouncement that they're stepping down, they are not stepping down. The term has come to an end. We're not thanking him. He did his job well, and that is what we'll thank him for. You've done your job well, and you've let somebody else come in. If you do that, we might not even look into the details of who you've appointed and who you're maneuvering to actually replace you, which means you still want to stay in power. That's what happens with these things. What do you think happens even in these so-called mature democracies? There's always someone they determine should take over. Why? It's predetermined, pre-planned. So long as they're human beings, there are things that human beings will do. We set up these systems so that we can limit these negative effects that human beings tend to have, especially when they have power. They never want to let go. We know this.
Cling on to it.
Yes, that's why you want to set up this thing and say, no clinging to it.
The predetermined thing is that people want to hold on to power. And that having been taken into consideration is why a lot of these things then were put in place. Understanding the notion that individuals don't want to let go. Individuals don't want to let go. If given a position where power is sweet, you know, the entire state machinery is at your beck and call, the things that you can put into place to make sure that this is extended. Which human being is going to want to let go of that with nobody? Be you as good as you may want to be.
Why do you think kings got their heads
This is the reason why these things were put in place. Now we have
completely decapitate you.
Yes, I mean physically.
So we are sure that your head cannot control your mind,
and it can't jump back onto your body and bother us. Yes.
Now, understanding that, people have then been able to come through and say, look, whether this is in law or not, this inherent thing in nature still wants to come and override what an entire nation then has put in a constitution. And that's the thing we are saying. Where Germany, wherever you want to look at it, around the world, even the United States itself, that it's shrouded in terms of how it does things properly and according to the rule of law. Israel, for example, you would never want to think that Israel ever did something wrong, you know, or went against the constitution or talked about it in a totally different manner. But here we are and we see that that can happen. And I am saying that at this point where we see that people are, for whatever reason, are stepping down, this is what we should continue to see as the norm, as the way things should actually be.
Let's open up the phone line 0719-012-600. You can chime in this conversation. Let's look at that opposition. That opposition has been caught flat-footed, and I think that's why they're making so much noise, because they wanted to use the fact that Alassane Ouattara is seeking an unconstitutional amendment of the constitution to extend his own term, that as their campaign platform.
They were shocked.
Completely pulled off under their feet.
And actually, then what did they say? They didn't hide their sentiments.
We were shocked.
They didn't hide their sentiments.
We
They
don't
said,
know what
actually,
to do.
we're very surprised that he did this, and for that alone, we thank him. It gives maybe the opposition an opportunity to come in. Who knows? But they honestly were very surprised and said, all right, we didn't expect this one coming, but it has come. So, fantastic. Let's see if we can move forward.
If you had to thank someone, look at our Kenyan politicians from the time of President Moi. He absorbs the opposition, and in so doing, kills it.
Yep.
That's it. Just
swallow it. So nobody's talking.
Well,
Nobody
you
is
can talk if
making
you
noise.
like, but you're part and parcel, and this is a multi-party democracy.
Yep.
But now we have something even more interesting. Look at our evolutionary process. Handshake, thank you. So the opposition is people are almost confused. So confused that the ruling party is now providing its own opposition.
Yes.
Now that, if you ask me, is an evolutionary process worth studying.
And that's our democracy. And it's how we're practicing our democracy. And we're okay with it.
So power continues to stay. So this is the thing we still talk about. That power
No.
still,
At the end of two
that
terms, in terms of term limits,
People
it's
leave.
clear.
people
In
leave.
terms of elections and the election cycle, it's clear. There's no reason why an election should be extended. Even now, people are talking about, is there going to be an election in 2022?
Yes, there will be.
There will be an election in 2022. It's clear.
People still stay. What we said, what we just say now, that this is with the agreement that there's somebody who has already been predetermined or at least pre-asked.
That's what
preset.
politicians do
Yes,
all the time.
Succession planning.
Pre-primed, so that power still remains in the hand of a particular
Of friendly, friendly side. of
still
friendly
remains
Someone
the
you can
same
do business
at
with.
the end of the day. Still remains the same at the end of
You
the day.
watch now in next coming weeks, you will see Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Hillary Rodham Clinton will be there talking at the delegates conference.
Yes.
And talking about one candidate,
One.
right?
Even if they don't like the person.
Whom they believe should be the right one. In fact, right now you can already see who is
Where
likely,
they're heading
they're
towards.
heading to. And that's what is going to happen, right? They will come and talk about, this is the way, this is the person, because the former politicians want to have a friendly person in office.
Someone they understand and
Can
someone
have
who knows what
influence.
needs to be done.
So power still remains in the same
They can
circles.
have influence.
So power essentially still remains in the same circles, however you want to look at it.
It usually does.
This is what we're saying. It still remains in the
It
same circles,
It usually does.
which is the norm.
Even
Yes.
these people who oppose presidents, if you look not too far back, they were at some point buddies,
Yeah.
same party. Someone was even probably a minister in that government. So where does it actually genuinely really go?
It's the same.
The world over, where does it actually go?
It just rotates among a small clique. It's a cabal.
And they recruit from a young age and they keep building up that same consensus.
The system.
So if we're going to say that all that really changes is that the names change, but the power still remains, whether somebody steps down or not. It's the names that change.
The power-
because the system still stays in place.
No,
the
systems
individuals,
also- no,
the individuals are the ones that are changing.
No.
But at the end of the day,
No.
the same group of people, the same cabal that you talk about, still remains at the helm of power.
There's an evolutionary process in politics that you can't run away from. And it's something that goes beyond the politician. There's a time authoritarianism was accepted. It didn't matter. It matters now. So everybody has a semblance of some democracy and setting terms. Time does that. It forces this evolutionary process. So it also means that you may be leadership. There's a time when a certain type of leader within a party would have been preferred. Times change and suddenly say, no, this person won't serve our interest well. We need that sort of person who is more moderate or who has a certain leaning. There are changes. It's not as though nothing changes. Things change.
Power generally doesn't change hands, though, from what we've seen as a general
Same
practice.
forest, same monkeys.
Exactly. Doesn't really change hands. Power then doesn't really change hands. If we're talking about cabal, if we're saying that, you pick your person who's going to come through, in the next term or whatever that may be, it doesn't really change hands. It stays, right around the same people. So whether somebody steps down or not, the individual
Every
is
once in a while it does.
the individual. There you go. The individual is
every
changing hands.
once in a while.
But the power stays within the general
There'll be
sphere
something
of
that shakes
things.
up the system.
Not always.
Something
Every once
shakes
in a
up
while,
the system, and an
yes,
oddball
comes
gets
in.
And it's an oddball.
And it's an oddball.
It's an oddball.
And
It's not
Yes.
the norm.
over time, now that oddball starts building its own system
And becomes the same as the
and
others.
becomes a system.
Yes.
So as we open up the phone lines, Ndu, I'd like you to ask the question that people should be responding to. 0719-012-600.
How about putting me on the spot for that? Thank you, Eric. Welcome back. Should it be the norm? Should we applaud leaders who actually step down wherever it is and say that they will accept the 2 terms and step down thereafter? Should we applaud them or accept it as what should be?
It's 7:45. This is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Good morning.
.9 Spice FM, Mombasa. spice up your life.
So
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Alassane Ouattara has said he's not going to be seeking a third term. Constitutionally, he should only serve 2 terms, and he had threatened last year that he was going to be throwing himself in the ring again should his fierce opponents, including Laurent Gbagbo, join the fray. But now he has said, you know what, guys, I'm done. This is it. This is the end of my term. I'm going home.
You know, President Moi set a trend in motion. If you look at the praises that were heaped on the former president, it's now the reality of hindsight saying, you know, if he had not set this in motion. At the time he was leaving, people wanted him out. Please remember, it's not as though they were saying, please stay. They were saying, no.
It's time for you to go.
You know, it's enough, just go, let other people do this thing. But when you've had one president, then another, you realize, actually, we ushered in something good. Because the power it gives the individual called the Mwananchi is the knowledge that I can bring change. Now, you may think it doesn't, but it does. You know why? We actually get to change MPs. When we were brought MCAs, we were given more game to shoot at. You can even bring more change. So the voter actually has real power, and they now know it. This is something which a one-party state doesn't actually afford you. And then there's the option of variety. You can even change. You can change where to stand. And we've seen it. People stand in parties that are not considered to be the norm in their backyard, and some win. Now, these are the little things that give you joy to understand this thing is actually a good thing.
But you know what Alassane Ouattara was trying to do?
Yes.
Is what President Moi tried to do in 1990. Right?
And we know how that went.
So what we're going to do is, yes, let's have this. So how many terms? 2 terms? All right, so let me start. Everything now is we are resetting.
Since we've agreed,
Let's
reset.
So
Reset from now.
If I am elected,
I'm going to take my 2 terms now.
For 2 terms.
And we said, okay.
And we said, okay. It's the same thing that Alassane Ouattara was trying to do. In 2016, so they came up with the new constitution. So he said, now let's reset the clock. All right. So now that we have a new constitution, it sets clear terms. So I'm going to be there for the first term. This is the kind of trickery that he was trying to employ here.
No, he
and
didn't do his homework. He didn't do his homework properly.
It didn't work well.
Again, going back and lending credence again that, you know, that is the inherent nature. The inherent nature is to stick around for as long as possible. I mean, if given the opportunity, or if to say that, you know, he didn't play his cards right, he didn't think about it right. If he had, and he had enough people on his side, we would probably have been seeing a totally different narrative today. If there were enough,
it's not people on his side.
If there were enough people, if there was enough support to get this done, if he had actually put all his ducks in a row and done it the way in which would have granted results, we would have probably seen him still there today. Honestly speaking, we would, because that is the inherent nature, to stick around within those corridors of power for as long as you possibly can, until death do you part, literally, which is what I think clearly the president of Cameroon is going to do. If we look at that as an example.
How long has that man been president?
There's no limit.
38 years.
There's no limit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's no limit, but still, even if there was a limit.
He removed the limits.
He is the one who removed the limit. Initially in government, there was a limit in Cameroon.
There was a limit, yes.
He himself removed it and said, you know what, lifetime presidency.
Paul Biya will be president.
Death is what is going
Paul
to.
Biya will be president.
So
death is what is going to remove Biya from the presidency in Cameroon. Death is what will remove him. He's not going to step down and say. But you can imagine he was in a position. He was in a position
because you don't live in Cameroon.
Yeah, because you don't live there. Come and go and live there, and then you say what the people of Cameroon are suffering today.
Come on, it's not because of Paul Biya. Look.
Eric, he's the president.
Let's give if you want to give an example of English-speaking and French-speaking Cameroon, the English-speaking people living in a region whereby the majority of the resources that Cameroon boasts of are centered. And yet, they still are the ones who are being downtrodden in terms of the system.
They're being marginalized in the worst way possible.
Disenfranchised completely because they don't speak the language of the day. And it's not just a language, but it's a system. It's a system that is up in place.
Who's propping Paul Biya?
The question that Eric is asking is a valid one. It's the French.
Bas. So there's no issue. If there was an issue, Paul Biya would not be president for life.
If the French thought there was an issue, he wouldn't be. They're very, very happy having Paul Biya there. Remember, you're talking about these francophone
They're very
countries.
happy with Paul Biya being there because in terms of being an assertive leader, Unfortunately, he is not.
Even the English-speaking West is okay with what's happening in Cameroon.
No, actually, they're not.
Eric, they're
no,
not.
no, no,
They're
no,
not
no.
pushing.
They're not.
No, Eric, they're not.
They're not.
No,
There's
they're
a
not.
war going on here where tens
They're
of
not.
thousands of people have
They're not.
died.
They're not.
And they're talking about the fact that the system has
Who's talking?
the English-speaking
And
Cameroon.
they want to
No,
secede
West.
even now.
They want to
I'm
secede
talking about the English-speaking West.
of Cameroon.
as opposed to the north.
Western part of the world.
They do what?
We just talked about the French propping
Oh,
beer.
sorry. We were talking
Is
about
there-
No, we were
Cameroon,
talking about
yeah,
Cameroon,
yeah.
the country,
Yes.
inside the country.
Yes.
The-
so me,
the
I'm talking about the French on
system.
one side is supporting beer. Is there any Western force that's opposing beer?
Allow me to explain something.
What is opposing
No,
beer
no.
is the rebels, which are in
Yes.
the English-speaking
Are
part
they
of
being
Cameroon.
supported by
No,
anyone?
no. A little history here.
Okay,
That part of Cameroon was semi-autonomous even at independence.
at independence.
And there was a clause that allowed them, it's like Zanzibar and Tanzania, which allowed them to more or less make their own decisions, etc., etc. They were okay with it. They had wanted to secede, they put that aside because they were functioning okay. That changed. That semi-autonomy went. So now they actually became an occupied territory, and that's what
Yes.
they felt.
And now called it Ambizonia. And
Yes,
said now that
exactly.
is what they want to.
So now
call
we're
their
calling
own
it,
country.
and now we actually want to secede. This thing of doing business with you, we do not want.
And they're not
now
getting
your question is,
external support.
they had external support. Where are they getting arms from?
Not sufficient. Let's go to the poll, to the calls for a bit. Otieno is calling in from Nairobi. Good morning, Otieno.
Good morning.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Yeah, you are talking about the Ouattara issue, and I'm seeing it's very strange. In first place, which democracy are you talking about, and which country apart from Africa that you can state for me that is practicing the one man, one vote democracy? You say about Ouattara saying that he will be relinquishing power. That is not what he should say. Many countries in Africa, Kenya, now that country called Ivory Coast, Tanzania, they have been doing that. So that's not a big issue. That's what I can say for now.
It's nothing to
Thank
talk
you.
about. Thank you, Otieno. 0719-012-600. Do you agree with Otieno? Should we be praising leaders who now step out of power at the end of their terms, who don't seek to extend their terms, or should even those ones that seek to extend their terms? Well, no, I'm adding in issues. So let's just talk about
Okay, you're
those that
wanting to
do not seek
conflict
to extend their terms. Should we be praising
By
them
the
because
way-
they've said, all right, so I've come to the
Do you
end.
know what
Thank
it's-
you very much for those 2 terms that you've given me. Or thank you even for the 1 term and not re-electing me. I'm going home.
Actually, this is something we actually probably need to look at. What it is that gets our people to a point where they have this mindset that you even want to thank people who have actually governed you in a way that is not so good. So that when you are actually offered, or when something that is actually yours by right is made available, you are thanking them for doing their job. It tells you of the mindset that we've had. I think many Africans have been so abused by the leadership that any small thing, for one, they actually get to forget that they have rights. So any small thing that, even if it's their right, it takes time to accept that, this is actually my due. This guy is not doing me a favor.
I do agree. You've fallen in love with you've fallen in love with your persecutor, essentially. And
Yes.
that is what has
Stockholm.
happened. Stockholm
Yes.
syndrome takes
So-
place at
So
very many
essentially,
levels.
yeah. So you feel, this guy is not so bad. Meaning you've seen worse. That's where Eric was right. We can't have a situation where we're determining things from the negative and saying, it's not so bad. No, it should be good. So if the standard is lowered, we're saying this is not as good as it should be.
I was going to the phone lines. Timothy on the line. Timothy, you can call back, please. Timothy calling in from Nairobi, was it? Yes. 0719-012-600. Oh, he's calling in from Narok, Timothy. 0719-012-600. The question we're asking is, should we be praising these leaders who leave office at the end of their term or when they are voted out?
I think it needs to be seen as something that should then become unequivocally the norm. That once you have a term, 1 term, whether it is whatever your constitution of any country has said, 1 term, if that's what the constitution says, come and go. 2 terms, go. Don't even talk about things like constitutional
Even in the middle
reform.
of the term.
When you
if you're
do
removed
leave,
democratically, either by an election or even by
Do
impeachment,
leave.
or whatever process.
do leave, so that the only way that this narrative will be changed is once it does become the norm, is that when you get people to stop thinking in this manner that CT has been talking about, whereby
Let me
you
go
say
to the
people
phone
are
lines.
doing you a favor. No.
Timothy is back from Narok. Good morning, Timothy.
Yes, good morning, Spice FM.
Good
How are you?
morning.
Yeah, my name is Timothy. I'm listening from Narok.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Timothy. What's your view on this?
So on the issue of Alassane Ouattara, maybe I'm just glad because he said he's going to give power to the young people.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I am happy about him. But for the other issue of relinquishing power, you should have done that so long ago. Because if you see his presidency,
Yep.
it was rocked by nightmares, and he was also not a very good president.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Timothy.
When you see him,
Raymond in Kisumu. Good morning. Hello, Raymond.
Morning to how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, when you see a leader stepping aside,
Yep.
it is not obvious that the old leadership is going back home, no? He has planted another leadership, which will still come back as the same team, the way they were.
So he'll still be leader.
Yeah, he's still a leader, because he's leaving his leaders.
His proteges.
Yeah, his students are still there. The old government is not packing.
Thank you, Raymond. Have a good day in Kisumu.
Okay, same to you.
Asante sana. Well, thank you for participating in the conversation. Of course, the conversation continues as well on our social media handles, Spice FM KE on Facebook, at Spice FM KE on Twitter, at Nduoko. You can tag us individually at Eric Latif, at CT Muga CT. As we come to the top of the hour, you were making a point, something of what we shouldn't or we shouldn't be doing. Should we be praising these leaders? Should we not?
No.
Yes, no.
We are feeding the dog here. We are feeding the bear. We are feeding the dragon. Because the leaders then get to believe that they're wonderful people who are doing you a favor. It's a job you're paid for.
All right.
And you should just do it.
Coming to the top of the hour, reminders our proverb for the day. Today's proverb.
A roaring lion catches no game.
A roaring lion catches no game. Well, join the conversation in the next hour. It's coming up to 8 o'clock. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We are live streaming, remember, on Facebook, Spice FM KE, YouTube and Twitter at Spice FM KE. Also on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. This is the first and only 24-hour audiovisual radio station in East Africa. That means you can listen to us and watch us. This is what happens. The conversation continues. In the next hour, we're going to be talking about what you see, what you hear from the politicians. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Right, smack on 8 o'clock. Let's see how things may have changed or remain the same. On Mombasa Road, still a bit of a gridlock right around the Cabanas heading towards town. That's going to take a while, guys. Of course, right in the middle of traffic hour. Thika Road is a mess. All lanes, bumper to bumper, from Roy Sambo all the way down towards the Pangani underpass, moving very, very slowly this morning. On Gong Road, Naivasha Road, then trying to connect to Gong Road, unfortunately, is not happening this morning, folks. Very, very slow. Langata Road, if you can avoid it, I don't even know what you're going to do. If you're going to use a southern bypass, then to try and connect to the Langata Road, go right across. Don't even try and then come down through T-Mall. Try and then get out to town using a longer route today, because it's not happening on Langata Road. It's not flowing, and that's the question. Is it flowing? It is not. It really is not. Coming out of Westlands, not much of a problem. On Gong Road, a little bit, right around the City Mortuary roundabout. We'll see what it looks like in a short while. Spice FM KE, let us know what you see, or give us a call. We're trying to keep folks moving. We'll see what Jogo Road looks like in a while. Until we hear from you, we ask that you exercise patience.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric
2.5 minutes past 8
agent
o'clock. Good morning and
provocateur,
thank
the
you for
man in
tuning
the
in
chair,
to The Situation.
seasoned
This is
journalist,
Kenya's
news
biggest
hound, a
conversation.
man who believes in
social
punching
media
up,
producer,
not
and
down.
has, come up with
This
very nice
is the
ones.
Situation
When life
Room,
gives you
the
Monday,
only way to
spice it up.
Well, we got to clap
Right.
Amilioto on the back for that one.
Right? Right? A good one, isn't it? CT,
Yes.
for the next 1 hour, let's talk about politics and politicians and their utterances.
Yes, let's. One always wonders at what point you should determine that what is said is actually what is meant. In everyday life, it's simple enough and it's easy to understand, and it's even to make it just a normal part of life. But when the very utterance and the mention of politicians come in, then all bets, as they say, are off, and your guess could be as good as mine. Because the one thing that you're not certain of is why it is the individual is making the utterances they are. Look at the utterances that have been made just in this last week. Look at the utterances that have been made against the backdrop of the burial of the AP who was attached to the Deputy President's office. Look at the utterances that have been made by Senator James Orengo. Look at the utterances that have in turn been made by the Deputy President. And then look at the comments that have been made about the BBI and the rally in Nakuru. And look at the comments that have been made prior to that. There is so much being said that half the time you're actually perplexed as to what you should believe and what you shouldn't believe. But there's a group of Kenyans who actually have no problem. And the problem is simply this. If it is uttered by someone they favor and someone they support, then it can't be wrong. If it is uttered by someone they do not favor, who at that particular moment isn't their chosen flavor, then it must be wrong. And the truth is only accepted if it's in, should we say, in tandem with the narratives that we've chosen to believe in. Now, it also brings the question of the influence that papers have on our perceptions. And let me add, or is it that our perceptions are fed on by the papers? If I were to look at what we read in the papers on a daily basis, whether it's about the coronavirus or whether it's about countries seeking independence or whether it's internal conflict, it's important to look at these things with a pinch, take it with a pinch of salt and ask the question, what exactly am I hearing? What exactly am I reading? The answer to that question is a simple one. There are facts, there are conjectures, and there's what falls under popular myth. Something that is in tandem with what ordinarily you believe, and something you prefer to believe, and something that you enjoy believing in. It may not necessarily be the truth. This is what I'm saying. When you question the things that you read, question the things that you hear, because they also determine the way you think. And that in turn determines the way you absorb information and your readiness to take on information. Now, you may not know this, but you're usually primed and you're usually preset to accept certain things and not to accept. The challenge here is to accept those things that ordinarily you wouldn't want to accept, simply because they don't agree with your chosen norm.
Read, question, question, read, question, question.
Listen, question,
Listen,
even
question,
even
watch,
more.
question.
There are popular myths that every community has. All of them have. Sometimes it's about, and believe when I say all, I mean all. It doesn't matter which part of the country you go to. You'll find them among clans. This clan is this. And that this is never positive. This other clan is this. Then you move a little wider, it's this region. And then it's this tribe. And all people have it. These people are this way inclined. These ones are this way inclined. These ones do this. And it is believed wholeheartedly by people who probably have never even come across one individual from that particular community. But it's taken as gospel truth. And they believe it, and oddly enough, they act upon it.
There you go. Gospel truth.
Yes.
Don't question the gospel.
you don't question the one who is bringing the gospel.
Actually, the gospel allows you to debate it.
It encourages you to, actually.
It does.
But I think that this is the thing, that once an individual now puts themselves in a position of leader or is put in a position of leadership, that anything that then comes out of their mouth on whatever platform is believed. How many cases have we heard of, we don't need to read the Constitution, our leader has read it. We don't need to read the report, he has read it. Or she has read it, and whatever then they then say to us is what we're going to take as truth. And unfortunately, I think that's a dangerous or slippery slope to go down. You want to know, or you want to have comprehension for yourself. And we know that comprehension is not just understanding. Comprehension is more complete. That yes, you've interrogated the issue, you have internalized it, and you know then what it could then mean. And I think a lot of the decisions that we make are based on understanding as opposed to full comprehension of the matters, and it can only come about if you ask the questions or if you interrogate it further.
It's based on what is popularly believed. For instance, one of the things that Kenyans will compare goodness or a standard that is near perfection is with a mzungu. If you keep time, you're told you're like a mzungu. You keep time. If you're honest, you're told this man is honest like a mzungu. You'd assume the person who's making that statement has met all the wazungus there, so they can determine that, well, if you look at the numbers, then clearly this would be a truth. There has been a certain myth doing the rounds. Africans, Kenyans black people cannot possibly contact the coronavirus. And people like to believe it. And why they're believing it? Because it makes them feel happy and safe. There is no truth attached to it because we don't know. So, there are other things that people say and believe which are dangerous. Dangerous because someone says, Serikali imesema. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would start by asking, which department of government are you speaking of? Because Serikali ni kubwa. And you also Serikali. Have you not heard people saying that with regard to the floods, that it has stopped raining, there'll be no more floods? Every time that statement is made, the following day it rains like it has never rained before. And just when you think it is safe, you suddenly find that the lake is swelling, and it's swelling at the rate of 10 meters per day coming inland.
Or people have the general perception that rain needs to be falling for flooding to occur.
Or
without a comprehension that it's not necessary for that to happen.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at what I'm referring to and what is often referred to as popular myths actually rule our lives. We don't even think or we know it, but they rule our lives. And the decisions that we make and the biases that we have to do with popular myths. But do you know why they take root? Because it meets a ready, fertile ground. We were already that way inclined anyway. And if it makes you uncomfortable, instead of interrogating the reasons why you're uncomfortable, your reaction is to reject it. Because it makes you uncomfortable. And yet that discomfort, it's odd about life. When someone has a fever, it's not that they're sick. It's that something is happening in their body to try and probably dispel that thing that is making them unwell. And that is what is bringing about the fever. But people know that you are sick when you have a fever. You are sick before you got the fever. That is the truth. We live on myths, we propagate myths, and we encourage others to propagate it. If you look at the politics of this country and the leadership struggles we have, a lot of it is around myth. Not necessarily reality, myth.
So isn't that then what leaders or even those who are sharing information then thrive on? Because I'm realizing that this is what people kind of live off of. Because you know that...
Start off with what they believe. Remember, they come from those communities.
So you have people who know this
So they understand it intimately.
Yeah. So you have people who know this, and you know that this is what we're going to continue feeding them because we realize that they live off of this. And so it will be to our benefit as whomever. Look, as leaders, as media, we know that this is what people want. If you put politics, and it's politics that's going to run the day of a newspaper, for example, it's because you realize that this is what people live off. People want the nitty-gritty, people want the story, people want the scandal, and that is what they're going to live on. So that is what you're going to continue putting into the public sphere.
The evolution of it, remember, a politician, if you go further back into history, was actually elected because people felt this person would articulate our problems and also represent us where representation was required. And for the longest time, that's what they were. So what they said was taken as gospel. People had no reason to doubt what they were saying. But the evolution of it is the very words we have. If I'm referred to Kenya, if I'm to refer to Kenya, every problem that we have, leaders have learned you don't need to solve it. Just throw words at it. Yes. You don't need to do anything. Just say. And they will choose words that resonate with something you consider positive. If somebody uses the word development, it finds fertile ground because you believe development is what will help your life. If you hear the word progress, you mirror what it is that in your life you consider to be progress. And then they'll say, like bursaries. And you immediately, if you didn't have one, you'll think some may be coming my way or the way of the whatever. Development, you'll think this road might actually be built. So it is you who fills in the blanks, not them. The politician will make bland statements, open statements. You fill in the blanks and you feel this man is actually speaking my language. This man actually has my interests at heart. Are there people who are unemployed? Of course they are. We will make sure that we create employment. How? We will work towards, then you throw a number like 500,000. Okay. We'll make sure organizations employ people. How? A simple question, how? When you ask the how, you'll realize everything is possible, but the economy needs to be growing for those things to happen. And then the next question is, how do you make the economy grow? You certainly don't grow it by taxing the hell out of people. And you also certainly don't make it grow by ensuring that the very money that the citizens are supposed to help develop with is plundered. You certainly don't. But when that question is asked, you're then told, we have a plan, and we are clear about the plan, and we're going to implement the plan. You know, that thing is done, it's done with, finished. The next time you hear of it, you'll be asking the same question, and you'll probably be told the same. And when we started, we moved, and we are continuing. Case in point, the many stadia that are supposed to have been built in this country. How many have been completed? Started. How many have been completed? National projects, county projects, same. Now, the citizen cannot benefit from what is due to them if they don't learn to question these things and to ask, not fight, ask, just ask. Explain this to us. What do you mean exactly? This thing that you say, where has it been started and where has it been completed? These are questions that are valid. Remember the question we asked. Devolution. We have a health problem. Health in theory is devolved, yet the bulk of the money is still in Afia House. So what did we what exactly did we devolve?
But, you know, I think when you talk about the politicians, and I hear what you were saying initially, you're saying whenever you hear something coming out of our politicians, look at it, pause, take it with a pinch of salt,
Pause it.
And question. I'd actually even say don't question, just don't believe it. We should be at a point where we don't even give politicians airtime, right? Go in, do what you're supposed to do, and this is what you're supposed to do. Go and do it.
I know what I am saying. I am the Deputy President of Kenya. I am not a madman. They may have the system, and since the system cannot elect anybody, they can only kill, but I want to tell them we have God.
No, let me do it one better.
To try and use the criminal justice system to perpetuate a certain political agenda or narrative is in itself criminal. And I want to say, for the avoidance of doubt, leaders in Kenya today, governors in Kenya today, members of parliament, MCAs, are being treated to intimidation, blackmail, threats, that they will be taken to this court or that court or taken to this corner or the other corner because of their political affiliation. When did Kenya sink that low? That today people are operating politics using blackmail and intimidation. These public servants in our offices should work in accordance with what their job.
It's mostly cloudy in Nairobi at 18
is.
degrees. We'll probably have some rain later on. We'll see how that looks like. In Nakuru at 17 degrees, mostly cloudy. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 26. In Nyeri at 18 degrees, mostly cloudy. Rain expected with highs of 24. Moving on to Eldoret at 15 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions. 22 the high, with thunderstorms expected later. Kisumu this morning at mostly cloudy conditions. Rain expected later at 20 degrees. Mombasa 28 degrees, partly cloudy, looking at highs of 33 and lows of 27. In Malindi, a warm day today at 28 degrees, highs of 32 and lows of 27. Taking a look into East Africa, mostly cloudy, really cloudy conditions in Kampala. And thunderstorms expected later with highs of 26 and lows of 21. Take a look down south in Johannesburg at 14 degrees, mostly sunny conditions with highs of 28 and lows of 24. Quick step into Dar es Salaam, mostly cloudy conditions at 28 degrees. Thunderstorms expected later with highs of 32 and lows of 25. And finally, in Lagos at 29 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions, highs of 34 and lows of 27.
Everything nice. All right. Okay.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
What politicians say and what they mean. Two different things.
I'm still going along with this. The plotters of these schemes want to let you know that unless you kill me, I'm not turning back. Kenya is for everyone. Look at the construction of that statement.
This is the deputy president speaking.
This is the deputy president
during the burial of Sergeant
yes,
Kenai.
The plotters of these schemes addressing one group, the plotters.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you kill me, the plot to murder the deputy president is back in the discussion. It came, it went. It was a group of people who were plotting in a place called Lamada. It came, went back and forth, went. It's back again on the table. I am not turning back. Turning back from where? Kenya is for everyone. I assume this was particularly obvious, unless somebody's saying they've been marginalized. The truth of the matter here is that the very people being addressed are not the people being addressed. The people being addressed...
The audience is not who's
No, the message is for somebody else. It's clear. It just happens to be that the people in front of him are conduit through which now either the message can be passed or knowing very well that it's falling on somebody else's ears and this will be caught up.
There's a phrase for
this. This is the annoying bit, and this is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Let's not give these people time.
Yes.
Because you come and stand in front of us. We are mourning the death of a friend, a relative, and then you come and tell us about, unless you kill me. Well, this man here has been killed.
He's already dead.
And then you're telling us that he has been killed because of you. And unless you are killed, you're not going to stop. So you want more people to be killed. And then you're passing on a message to somebody else. So he goes on to Meru yesterday and he's still speaking the same and saying, public servants, we are going to name you in a short time. Just name them already. Why is it that we give politicians airtime to come and do this nonsense? Go to a BBI rally and you're talking the same thing. Oh, you people, when you're buying land, we are not going, we must have a referendum. If you want to have a referendum, just go ahead and plan a referendum. Don't come and involve us.
The only reason they do this is because they've been allowed to all this time.
We give them too much space.
It is a situation of normalcy whereby a politician can say whatever they want to say at a church service, at a funeral, at a fundraising, whatever it is, and they pass messages to whomever they are passing messages to. If you had a walkout system whereby somebody comes and starts talking whatever is not relevant and people left, you wouldn't have this kind of thing. But it's because it has been normalized. Politicians know, all right, something has happened today. Tomorrow there's going to be a funeral service. That's a perfect opportunity for them for me to send a message. That's a perfect opportunity then for me to say what I know. In this case, you have evidence, take it to the office of the DCI. Don't bring it here in front of somebody's funeral who lost his life in the very midst of this case because of this issue.
Or don't take it. If you just have go and face that person. If you believe somebody is plotting to kill you, just go to them and tell them, all right, so
I'm here.
Put it on the table. Yeah. Tell me what the issue is. Let's deal with it right here. Mano if that's what's necessary. Tell me what the issue is. But I'm saying that we're asking the questions, why? Why is this stuff put out in the open? Why is it in the media? Why do politicians feel as if they can do this? Because they have been allowed to over time. By people. People go, you sit down, you listen. Somebody comes to a funeral, listen, okay, no problem. And then it is perceived that this is what the public actually wants to hear. It's the basic science of it. You do it enough times, it becomes a habit. People realize, all right, this is the position that I'm going to put myself in. Okay, go ahead. It is because it has been normalized, and that is why it continues. If it is cut, or if it was not agreed in the first instance, we wouldn't have it when we see it now. It has become so normal that people come and they give this kind of political messaging when something else should be discussed. And something that seems so simple, you as an individual CT today, if you come and say, I have information on somebody's murder, instead of you to go to the police, you come to church and stand and they say testimony time, then you come and start talking about how I actually know. No, it's not the forum. Take it to somebody who can actually do something about it. So the messaging is very clear at this point. You have something to say, you have an audience, and you're giving out this information to the general public. Whereas if we look at the underlying issues, if you're really concerned about the wheels of justice spinning, that information that you have, you'll take it to the DCI.
You know, the utterances that one hears for and against, they're so prevalent that I've actually come to ask myself a simple question. Is what I'm hearing or reading real, or are we being set up? Or is this some elaborate scheme that the leaders at the top have hatched to just keep us busy? Because if there's an appearance of infighting within Jubilee, it's good entertainment. If there's a handshake and there's a further fighting between Raila Odinga and supposed fight between William Ruto, that's even more interesting. And it keeps going on and back and forth and back and forth. I'm actually questioning whether there is a real problem or not. I'm actually questioning it. And I'm actually questioning whether this thing wasn't engineered to look like a big problem so that a solution can be found for it. I'm actually questioning it because these are politicians and it's not beyond them.
So it's part of a larger script.
Or no script
appears.
at all. Or
This
no
is
script
just
at all
action.
for what CT may be saying.
No, it's a script,
but
but it isn't what we're being told.
Yeah, it's like the Bermuda Triangle. You know that there's a problem here. You get in and you can see the results of it. The winds are flowing. People seem to get in and they disappear. They never really come out, right? You know that there's a phenomenon there. Nobody's actually really been able to find out what it is until actually somebody then, yet another person goes in and disappears. Something that you really can't explain, but it is a reality right there for you. And unfortunately, yes, if we don't interrogate, if we don't ask questions, or in some cases pay it no mind whatsoever, you can imagine something, if it has a little bit of fuel and it gets up the road, it's going to run out of steam at some point, and it either will not move or it will find another way to keep going.
Consider, for instance, when there was a clamor to get Saddam out of power, right? What whooped and whipped up the sentiments was
Weapons of mass destruction.
And people believed that this was the case. And man, did they support the move. Saddam got out. The country was destroyed. This wasn't really emphasized, but when it's destroyed, you need to rebuild it. The process of rebuilding it, you also take over the industries that produce money because that's how you'll be able to pay back whatever you're putting in place. But what was later to come out in dribbles and not really fully complete was that there was more business being had from this nation that had been plummeted and pummeled during that warfare. Then there was the reality of weapons of mass destruction. There were none. What brought this to the fore was there was the issue of this so-called huge cannon that they were supposed to build for Saddam, something that could shoot a missile some long distances. What lent credence to this was that certain pipeline, these things had been produced in the UK, not some other place. They had been shipped. But the whole idea of this mega weapon seemed to be in the realm of more mythical than it was real. But as for nuclear warfare, there was hardly anything that could even approximate calling what they found there. But the country was already destroyed. Now, people try to dance around it. The Prime Minister of Britain at that time got a lot of egg on his face. That's just about it. He's alive and well and getting on with his life. But it isn't the first time that something of that nature has actually been presented as the truth, and yet it isn't the truth. Remember, with every situation that has caused great political mayhem, there's always been a myth around it. Gaddafi was presented for the longest time as the devil incarnate. And yet, those who went to Libya would say, the Libyans aren't really complaining because
they were happy.
They were happy.
Very happy.
Yes, what you would want in terms of material goods were available. Cities were built for people who decided they didn't want to live in the cities. They prefer to live in their tents.
Their children went to school free until 18.
People who were paid to have children. Meaning the economy was okay. But Lockerbie, an airline went down, Gaddafi was blamed. That debate rages on even to date as I'm speaking. it isn't beyond our politicians to conjure up a situation where we are constantly engaged in wondering who's
Keep us busy.
Yes.
Or to keep people away from what could be the truth.
It's just to keep us
Or
occupied.
to keep you occupied around the politics of an issue without looking right at the thing that, look, somebody died. Somebody was clearly taken out because of something. Somebody was shot because they held information over a process that seemed to have been defrauding the government, defrauding the country, taking away from that attention. So everybody is stuck in the politics about who said what or who said the other thing without realizing that there was a scam that was happening here right at the seat of government.
Maybe there was no scam even.
Taking away from that.
Maybe there was no scam. Maybe that whole thing is also all engineered. Yes. Apart from people who have been arrested, what else have you seen? Have you seen any weapon? Have you seen anything? Have you seen any government actually saying that we have signed? This whole scheme is just a thing by politicians. One side of politics and the other side of politics just playing with our minds. Same thing that has happened with the BBI. It has taken us time and time and time again. We are discussing BBI. We're told this is going to be the one that solves all our problems. Is it going to be solving all our problems, or is it going to be fixing some problems for some people? This is a conversation. And yet we go around the country. Yes, we're spending time now. The Paul Mwangi team is sitting until tomorrow is the final day for the Nairobi sittings. And they're saying they'll be concluding by March, keeping us busy for over 1 year. Since 2018 up to now, March, we are still busy talking about BBI this, BBI the other. Let's go around the country. Let's have conversations. But when you go out and have those rallies, we're not talking about the content of the BBI or what is ailing the country. We're discussing other things. We are discussing, people now, this is the way to go. Those other people are the evil people. We are the right people. This is a whole scheme by politicians to take over our lives.
So you're saying this entire case?
There's
no case.
There's no case.
There's no scam. There's nothing that happened.
This thing that you're calling, there's no, until a moment when you see it in court and you say, this is what was happening. And if it's a pure con game between, why aren't we seeing this conversation of Golden Scape being made in a political headline?
I think
this is a scam. People paid money. People's money has gone.
I think the weight of
many
that,
people. Here we're talking about some 2 people who went and signed a deal, and some 2 people who claimed that they paid somebody 10 million shillings. Some 2 people, and that's it. And that's the end of that story.
Tell me, if indeed there were arms being bought, the common mwananchi in Kenya, what do you think his concern is on a daily basis? And what are the issues that are actually germane to his life? He has water, he has food, he has a school for his children to go to, and he has security. This scam, was it going to interfere with their security? We don't really know, but no.
We don't know.
No, it's more likely not. It's not. How is it going to? Secondly, since when do civilians go around buying ammunition for the military? Since when?
That's the question.
Since when? Do you see the military coming to the Ministry of Health to help them buy health equipment? They don't. Because they understand that's not the area of expertise. Have we resolved the problems that were brought by the floods? The answer is no. We've forgotten about it completely. And with it, we've forgotten the people who are suffering, not suffered, are suffering from it. Have we gone over or have we solved the problem of the locusts? The answer is no.
No.
But are we talking about it? The
No.
answer again, no. It's been forgotten. Now, to underpin what I'm saying, focus on what the attention of the nation has been pointed to continuously. We've been shepherded in one direction, and that is the focus. You go to a funeral, it is the focus. People watch a football match, instead of just watching a football match,
You're looking at the
focus.
optics.
Yes. World Women's Day almost came and went without it being an issue because this other matter has actually taken center stage. And if you look at the women whose names are mentioned, man, these women did wonderful things. You'd be hard-pressed to find men who have done the equivalent of what they've done. You'd be hard-pressed.
But our focus is?
On what is happening. So tell me, is this engineered or not?
Well, in this case, then, one thing that actually comes out very clearly is that it is possible, and this has been the norm, it is possible to be able not to shepherd people, but to actually shepherd their thinking in one way. And you continue to feed people on this. That's what they're going to continue gobbling up. And it's clear that this is the kind of thing that people get, deer in the headlights kind of stuck on, and they'll stick there while other things continue to happen. It's been done over time. It continues to be done. And that's what should be focused on.
29 to 9. This is the situation. Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at traffic.
Online, on digital,
Right, looking a little bit better on Mombasa Road. The Red Hill bypass, though, if you're going to the other end of the city, is bumper to bumper. What should have been an alternative to get out of Westlands is not happening. You might actually want to stick on Waiakiwe if you've not yet approached the area. It's looking a little better on Thika Road, but traffic is still right around Roy Sambu and then getting to some other pockets of Thika Road today. It'll get better, but for now, people are going to be stuck. Langata Road is still a mess, folks. What happened about an hour ago, not happening. Coming off Naivasha Road, right around Gong Road, and then Kingara Road and Riara Road, where should be used as alternatives, not happening either. Everywhere you look, it basically is traffic. Hopefully it'll open up in a bit. We'll let you know. Let us know what you see. The southern and eastern bypasses, the southern bypass, no go for today. It might hold you up for a while. And the eastern bypass, then getting to Thika Road, also not so bad. So you can use that as an option. Spice of MKE on Twitter. Let us know what you see. Let's keep people moving. It is Monday.
Pure golden sound and good talk. 94.4 Spice FM.
It's 2079. We're discussing the dead cut stuff.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
People are discussing
Spice up yourself.
something very serious, and you're the one who's been putting the phone on. What
Mornings
you just
done right.
Dead cut, and you press it on the table.
94.4
People's attention
Spice
focuses
FM,
on the dead
Nairobi.
cut on the table, and they forget about what they were pinning you on. So this is the kind of thing that maybe we are seeing. You know, these grand schemes. Oh, there was a whole, con game between one individual or several individuals who were meeting in certain offices, and they were going somewhere, and then it has become a whole conversation. An innocent person has died. Somebody has died. Somebody's,
Someone has lost a very key member of the family.
Yes, they're dead. And then we still spin it around and say, this person was killed because of me.
Have you ever heard in the recent past something that affects the Mwananchi, something that affects us being the center of discussion for this long? Have you?
Nope.
Think of anything. For instance, we've been talking about the female cat, as we call it. It features from time to time, disappears. The circumcision of women. FGM, as we know, as it's known.
I heard cat, but okay.
Yes.
Okay.
When we talk about gender issues.
You had cat instead of cat.
Cut. C-U-T.
Yeah.
When we talk about gender issues, you then have to talk about gay rights. Does it ever feature? It is something that needs to be discussed. It is not discussed.
Never comes up, no.
Okay. Have we, the closest we get to debating things that are of concern to the Mwananchi is when governors come together and start talking about moving this share that they get to 45% as opposed to 15%. And then talking about they want the money today or else. And talking about, now, wanting the money, it's a good debate and they should ask for it. But they don't have a very good track record cumulatively of managing the resources that they've been given already. Do they? Now, if this was the debate that was in the headlines on a daily basis, I would say hooray to that, and it would be a good debate, because that money, if properly utilized, would change the lives of individuals conclusively. It never takes center stage. Never. You can look at these papers and go back a week. It was some political issue that took center stage.
One thing or the other.
Yes.
And this is what
Isolated by this and that, playing this kind of game.
And we help this conversation because of the prominence we give it. Meaning, we also understand what people need to read, but it doesn't kill the hunger pangs. It doesn't provide you the safe drinking water.
I dare say that if the narrative changed and if the information that we are putting out there, because it started somewhere, all of this started somewhere. Now, if you change that and start to put out things that actually benefit people, in humans, that really then speaks to what it is that they are experiencing at that point. Because we talked about the issues underlying, for example, food security in the country, talking about things like, the security or, political stability of the country. You talk about the locus, you talk about education, things that when people go home, they hold their head either in hope or wonder about how it's ever going to be sorted out. If it shifted And then, for example, put the headlines that we see, just as an example, towards the end. That is what is going to take center stage. And that is what you now bring about that people can now start to have conversations about. People are interested in this because this is what has been fed to them over time. If something else is, it's like you go to a buffet, you're going to pick what you have in front of you. If that is what is served up, you're not going to go to a buffet and say, actually, thanks very much for this. Give me what is in the kitchen. No. You're going to take what's on the buffet. So if something different then is presented, that is then what you're going to choose from. And I say, if you change what you put out, you change how people think. And to me, that it just remains very, very clear.
Climate change is affecting the whole world. Even naysayers like Donald Trump are now beginning to acknowledge that it isn't a myth. It wasn't created by some people just to confuse you. It is real. And they're understanding it because of what's happening in the world. This winter, which hasn't ended in some parts of the world, people were importing snow, to be precise. France, Russia, they were importing snow.
Norway even to keep this for
slopes, winter sports. Yes,
for
exactly.
Slopes for skiing. Yes.
Now, people talk about the flu, which is a virus, and say, but we've had it. Yes, different parts of the world have winters at different times, but flus manifest themselves during winter. Now, the reason why you keep having vaccinations is because they mutate, and the flu that you have this year may not be the same flu as the one you had the previous year. And because different parts of the world have their winters at supposedly different times, then you'll find that you'll think some part of the world is exhibiting those signs different from the others. It's a reality that people have faced, and they even know what to do with it. But why? Because they focused and they've understood. Now, we understand that our people are poor. There is nothing that I'm reading here that addresses the poverty of our people. There's nothing that addresses the basic needs of water, shelter, food. It doesn't address. It just addresses some high-flung debates that politicians have decided to have, and they've joined us in this discussion, and they continue to
and they're
join
keeping us there.
Yes, and we're allowing them to keep
participating it on a daily basis.
Every single
the
day.
conversation we're having, for example, on BBI. BBI has so many other things that we could be discussing, but no.
On the BBI itself.
No. We're discussing, who's supporting BBI, who's not. And why are they supporting BBI? Why are they not? What do you want? Do we want a referendum? Is it possible? Is it feasible? Is it not? That's about money. What kind of system of government do we want? Inclusivity in governance. Who said we have a problem with inclusivity of governance?
Who said?
The politicians who have an issue.
We've had an issue of oil, and this matter of tallow oil. It died. Yet, what we heard and what we read was that this was going to help solve very many of our problems if we actually got this oil working.
Yes.
Maybe it's being addressed silently. But these are the things that actually change the lives of people.
Konza ICT complex never started. Something is happening, yes, but at a very slower level, a slower rate. If you can compare to other politics that's happening at a faster rate. You told us about, there's a week that you raised the issue of that project from Lamu going all the way to the LAPSET project. LAPSET project, yes, some stuff is happening, but is it getting the national,
support,
kind of visibility that it should be getting?
The last we read was that the former Prime Minister, the Honorable Raila Odinga, had gotten funding from the Exim Bank. Now, of interest is not even the LAPSET. Let's leave LAPSET pending. We'll come back to it. But the coal deposits that were found in Lamu.
No, in here in Ukambani.
Even in the Lamu area, there were coal deposits. Okay? It means we have a lot of coal. It's like a belt. You can more or less see where it... The countries that keep kicking a fuss about coal use coal in many areas as a predominant source of power. The US uses it. All these developed countries use it. China. So the fight is how to reduce the carbon emissions. Technology around it has gone and shown that you can actually still use the product but reduce the emission significantly. And they're getting to a point where they're getting to an almost zero emission of carbon. Ours was a blanket no. These countries grew to what they are by using coal. Now, with modern technology, why should we not use our coal? Why should we not exploit it? Because we now know that there's technology that guarantees that you don't have to cause the harm that the other people cause.
Yes.
No, you don't. We know this. Is this a point of our discussion? No. We have to get into a quarrel and go to ICJ about oil deposits on our shores and on our borders, where is the discussion about the very thing that is supposed to take this country to the next stage? Forget these declarations by IMF to prevent themselves from giving us money by calling us a middle-income country so that we're not now eligible for certain loans. Where are the real projects that will genuinely take us? Norway that we keep talking about, it's not even 100 years, less than. There were just some basic farming and
hunters
fishing.
and gatherers.
Yes.
This is what they were,
Yes.
really, if you want to look at
Thank
that.
you.
But then there were people with like mind who came together and said, you know
no.
what, we can't just continue. This cannot be the status quo forever. Let's put ourselves together and see what we can do. And then they segmented this community and said, all right, from here, now this is what we are going to do in order for us to move forward.
What focuses the minds of the people is the things that we're discussing, not this nonsense that we keep being fed on and conditioned on. No. And then you're told it's for your development. How exactly? How? How does it actually change something fundamental? BBI, we understand. Why is it the politics around BBI is discussed more than the content of what is in the BBI? And yet the content is what's supposed to change.
The content is
what's supposed to change the country, really.
Yes.
Or move we keep saying move forward, right? Because that means
there's
we're in a place where
on that, but
there's
yes,
a place
that's
where
the argument we should be having.
Right, because
is
there's
it
a
really
place
what
where
we
the
should be
country is
discussing at this
stagnant.
point?
Yes.
You know,
So should we be talking about the politics? Should we? Who said what? Who didn't say? Who's invited? Who's not invited? Who cares? But that's what I'm saying. The political leaders have understood that this is what keeps the people transfixed to a point whereby we're not even thinking then. And you can't then demand about something that's not in the public sphere. If the information is not out there, what are you going to use then to form an argument?
There are those that argue that politicians wake up in the day just like the way you woke up and you came to work, and this is what you do. You're a journalist, you're a broadcaster, you came and did this. A politician wakes up, they're a politician, so they wake up to politics. But then we have to remind them that no. Politics is not about the rhetoric. Politics is about doing something. You wake up and you have an agenda. You want to push that agenda. You go and debate with your fellow politicians
in order to fulfill
that agenda. So you can argue on the points, on the pros and cons of moving the allocation to the counties from 40 to 45%. Let's have that argument. You can argue about other things. Let's have those arguments. You can argue about reducing our system of government or expanding our system of government. Let's have those arguments, but from that point of the argument's sake. Not from standing at a pulpit and saying, you know what, my security has been withdrawn. Or saying, next week we're going to sort these guys out. Within 2 weeks, we're going to come up with a motion to remove this man from being the deputy president. Where? Why are you wasting our time telling us things that once that mic was switched off, you forgot what you had said? Why are we wasting our time listening to these people? And I keep saying, let's ignore politicians. Well, we have to invite them to this show, but
let's invite them to tell them that we're ignoring them.
Yeah. When we invite them to the show,
we're not paying any attention to you anymore. These things that you're saying, we're really not interested.
But the thing is, let's do what we do. When we bring them to the show, we're discussing issues. Not how many votes can you bring to the table? How many lawyers do you have? How many Kambas do you have? It's not the issue.
The issues must come to the fore. And I think that's one thing that we're very clear on at this point, that the issues must come to the fore. And people have to demand. Look, people are not uncomfortable. And I'll say it again. People are not uncomfortable enough with the way things are.
Normally, you are supposed to do this and say this and you haven't. You resign.
Come and go.
Out. Meaning, they have a high sense of morality. They understand.
And their standards are way up here.
It's not way up there. That's where the standards should be. They understand that when you are in public life, when you do these things, or if you are in any position of authority, if you fall short of the threshold, you leave it for someone else. Ours, you stick and you dare people to remove you. Yeah.
We should have that conversation again. Should everybody be allowed to vote, or should you have weighted voting?
Yes.
Probably. That will make some sense. It's 9:15. Let's open up the phone lines. Do you believe that what the politicians, what we are being fed on a daily basis, is basically a strategy to derail us from what should really matter? In other words, we call this the dead cat strategy.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
To the phone lines. Lynette in Nairobi, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
We're
Fine, thank you.
I'm not quite in Nairobi anymore. I think I've crossed into Kiambu County.
Okay, Lynette, moving from Nairobi to Kiambu.
Nairobi Metropolis.
Yes.
Okay, exactly.
Yes.
But guys, the conversation you've had is really, really important because truly I agree with you 100% plus. We're just being distracted.
Right.
We're just being distracted. And people who go, at the end of the day, those who go for these rallies, largely many of them are paid or are jobless, so they're desperate and they're going for entertainment. But they'll be influenced to vote these guys back then. And it's all just a game. The whole wars between Tanga, Kieleweke, BBI, and whoever else. To me, it's just one gang of thieves. I'm sorry to say that.
Yep.
But it's just one gang, let me say, then. And who are shepherding us back into just a different paddock. But they own everything.
Thank you, Lynette. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Good day. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Lynette.
All right. Zachary.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
Hi,
How's
Zachary.
Nakuru?
Hi.
I'm happy that our agent provocateur is back.
I'm happy to be back, man.
I thought you had quarantined yourself.
I had.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Wow, that's good. Now, I'm going to be very brief. Let me ask you a question. You all know a certain last born, yeah?
Yep.
Probably born in a family of so many kids, like the way our mothers used to, you know?
Yep.
That guy throws tantrums because he knows that everybody is focused on him. You see? If you deny him the attention, he starts behaving like a good kid, you know? So you guys look at the politicians and the newsmakers, that is you people, yeah? You guys, you are two different entities, but you are one thing. Because without the politician who is throws tantrums, you guys can't get something, you know, enough to write, you know? So this is what we should do.
Ignore the last born.
Definitely. Our agent provocateur is suggesting that we deny these guys airtime, yeah? I concur with that, Mr. Ratchis, yeah? But then, you know, the scribes, that is you guys, yeah? You write things for our consumption. That is the general public, is it?
Yep.
The politician throws his tantrums because he knows that the scribe will definitely convey that to us, the general, what, yeah?
Public.
So the solution is this. You know, like me, the last time I watched TV, believe it or not, I watched TV during the inauguration of Mr. Uhuru's second inauguration. That is, 15 minutes, believe it or not.
So give them airtime, bottom line. You said you want to be brief today, Zachary.
Definitely. So what we are going to do is that we, the general public, should start actually choosing what we are going to consume. If we saw it is issues revolving around these tantrums and whatever, we know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Marcel in Kitengela, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. I wanted to say our politics, although we understand politics is a lifetime thing, but the politics in Kenya.
Yep.
Yes.
Mostly revolve around individuals. It's not about the people of Kenya. It's about individuals. When you look at what we are talking about now, it's about individuals. It's not about development in our country. Neither does it look at what Wananchi are looking for.
Yeah.
Like now, I think what we should be doing now as Wananchi, and again, our politicians have learned well what we like. The Kenyan people also too. They like talking about politics. They like politicking too much. So the politicians have learned this, and that is what they are giving us. I think what we should be doing as ignore them. Yeah, that would help us. Like what we are seeing now, the BBI. I don't think if the BBI was a priority for Kenyans now. I don't think if the politics of 2022 are priority for Kenyans now.
Yeah.
But Kenyans have liked it. They have embraced it. So politicians will talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcel. Kariuki in Nakuru, good morning.
Good morning to how are you guys?
We're fine, thank you.
Eric, I thought you as well hibernated to somewhere else.
I was in self-quarantine.
Thank you. My question is this.
Yep.
My question is, if today we have been asking for a bill, or rather we are going to a referendum so that we can maybe increase money or devolve this money to Wanjiko or something like that. Maybe the bill that we want to pass is that one of helping Wanjiko. Do you think these guys could be going around the country? That's my question. Can you answer me that one? And please, I think the best way to change the constitution today is not through the BBI, because BBI is going to subject Kenyan people to more enslavement rather than, because the interest here is for the big men to have seats, to remain at the top, at the expectation of majority, beyond the expectation of the Wanjikos and the majority of Kenyans.
Thank you,
I don't
Kariuki.
think BBI is taking us anywhere.
Thank you, Kariuki. Solomon in Mombasa, good morning.
Good morning.
Yep.
City, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Okay, my question is...
Why are you not greeting the other two, Solomon?
wondering.
But I thank you for the bias, though.
Solomon,
But
why are you like this?
why are you not greeting the other two?
Because
I said hello to him. He said hello to you. Now say hello to Ndu.
Hello, Ndu. Oko.
Good morning.
Thank you, Solomon.
All right, go ahead, Solomon.
No, my question is, as citizens, what do we want? That is my question. Because if a politician comes to the podium and says, for example, I want to build a school, a hospital, does that one really what you want? If it is what you want, the MC will come and tell us build a clinic. The MP will build a clinic. Your UN rep a clinic. 5 politicians will promise you on one thing. Why don't they have a meeting themselves? They actualize what they want to build, then come build it, then come and say they have already built it.
Yeah.
Because what they come and say, they come and promise things necessarily probably don't even want. Where I come from, it is a farming area. They tell us, for example, we'll give you electricity, but that's not our main economic. Electricity, if we do farming, we get our produce to the market, we get money, we'll ask APLC to fix us, we'll pay that. But as long as my pocket is empty, whatever affects me on a daily, whatever I do from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. is not articulated to. The rest are here or no there. Because, for example, long time ago, when there was no electricity, you also had very rich people who don't even have electricity in their house. But they were okay. They used to feed, used to go to school. Because whatever they do from morning to evening has been articulated too.
Point
so
made.
The rest is yes.
Point made, Solomon. Asante sana. Let's go to Hussein in Nairobi. Good morning, Hussein.
Good morning, Eric.
Salama kabisa. Salimia
Salama, habari ya Nduoko and City.
Morning.
Hatujambo kaka.
Yes, and kwanza kwenda kwa Eric kwanza.
Yep.
You know, guys have talked about you self-quarantine. But there's one thing that we should know, that also viewers listen a lot.
Yep.
So when you ask for leave, you should also ask from the viewers also.
I should seek public participation.
Yes. Yeah, either way, I've heard about you guys talking about how BBI is being handled right now, and I had a very good point from City. The problem of BBI, guys are going to the rallies talking about non-issues. We have actually diverted away from the document. I don't know if these guys are thinking that Kenyans don't know how to read. Kenyans have not gone through the document. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, all of a sudden now we are talking about guys who want to be cleaned. You remember the issue about Mosho Moja last week? There are politicians who have stolen, have killed, all that. You know, now they are coming to the BBI. I mean, the BBI agenda has just changed. And, you know, that is the only thing that we have, the best thing that have happened in 2020. Yeah, as we are heading to the next election. And, you know, our politics have always been evolving. And now we are talking about I mean, new things like, okay, this thing, BBI, it has to work for the Kenyan Mwananchi. And also the media, it's not that the media has not been helping a lot. These days, some newspapers cannot sell without the names of some of the politicians.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about the stories and all that. So, can we go back to the document? That's my point.
Deal with the issues.
Yes.
Thank you, Hussein. Have a good day in Nairobi.
All right. Thank you.
John in Nyandarua.
Yes, this is John. How are you guys?
Good,
Tuko
thanks. Good
salama
morning.
kabisa, John. How are you?
Yes, I'm fine. Now, I've heard you this morning, and you had a good debate regarding Ivory Coast and all. It has been all very interesting. And at home here we are on the BBI issue.
Right.
The BBI issue has not been given any intelligence, what we call it? Intelligent
Conversation,
consideration.
focus.
Conversation. What has happened, it has become a political rally. They've turned it to be a political thing. In other words, it's a platform for somebody who wants, a certain office come 2022. We thought the BBI was something that would make dear the constitution that we have. So unless Africa now changes, the people of Africa changes, and they come out with a document that would govern the whole of Africa, we shall continue to have this mess in Africa. What I say is that the OEU in itself should come up with a constitution that would govern Africa.
Okay. We've opened up a whole new can of worms. I think that we can discuss another day.
An African constitution.
A Pan-African constitution.
Yeah, an African constitution. Unless we have that, we are going to have the same dramas we are having in Kenya, dramas that are faced by the people of Africa all over.
Okay.
Yeah.
John, asante sana and have a good day in Nyandarua.
Thank you. Thank you, John. There's a term, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but it's pronounced CHEWBACCA. It's one word, whether it's Chewbacca or Chewbacca. Yes, okay. But it's a defense strategy that the terminology is when a lawyer is before a jury, and instead of focusing on the issues at hand, he uses a tactic to confuse the jury, meaning he introduces something completely different.
To throw them off.
This is what we see here.
It's Chewbacca.
It's a cousin to dead cutting, and it's also a cousin, not a distant cousin, just an immediate cousin to wagging the dog. And in our case, it's also a very close relative of post-truth politics. Meaning, the truth is actually besides the point.
Okay, strong ones there. 9 o'clock, this is the Situation Room. Good morning.
Right, things looking much better on Mombasa Road. Trying to get into the city is not so bad right now. On Thika Road, this tear causing traffic. Some say for no reason, but quite a number of factors there. The construction still going on, trying to get into the CBD, and then getting into the CBD is an eyesore because of the fact that it's a mess right in the middle of the CBD. That increases traffic. On Gong Road is opening up just a little bit, getting to the city mortuary roundabout. Yeah, it's been a mess in other parts. Coming off of the southern bypass and then into Langata Road, not very good because of the problems that we saw on Langata Road earlier today. The eastern bypass is all good in and outbound to Mombasa Road or Thika Road, whichever way you're looking at it. So not so bad today. The Red Hill bypass giving us some problems where it was bumper to bumper. That's opening up and moving a little bit. It's moving slowly, but it's moving all the same. We'll take a look at Jogo Road now, getting into the city center because we have all the influx of traffic from industrial area. That is moving very, very slowly right now. But the thing is, we'll get there eventually. Letting you know what alternatives you can use. Please let us know. Share with us as well so we can pass on that good news. Spice FMKE, give us a shout on Twitter and we'll spread the word.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
90.9 Nyeri,
This
Eldoret,
is the
96.7
Situation Room,
Nakuru, 96.0,
the only way to start your
102.5
day.
in Kisumu, Mombasa, 87.9 and 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the
So you told
Situation
about
Room,
Chewbacca,
the
and
home
you
of
told
hard-hitting
about,
political
Death Cat,
commentary.
and it was a
Wag the
distant
dog.
cousin to Wagging the Dog.
And post-truth politics.
Okay.
Let me just give a little background so you understand.
Mm-hmm.
Those who watch Return of the Jedi.
Yes, I was going to say, Chewbacca is one of the characters in Star Wars.
Yes, exactly. But the person who made this popular was somebody called Johnny Cochran in the O.J. Simpson case. Everything had been laid out, but those who had brought Simpson to court based some of the case on a glove.
Yep.
And all that Cochran did was to prove that that glove did not fit.
If you don't fit,
if it didn't fit,
you must acquit.
You must
precisely,
acquit.
and that was the refrain. Glove. So
That's it.
everything that had
else. Whether the blood was there,
whether he was there at the moment.
the footprints on the boot were available, whether he was in the vicinity, none of that then came into the conversation anymore.
If it doesn't
It
fit,
is impossible that this man was wearing this
you
glove.
must acquit.
we look at our case, forget everything we've done, TJRC, Ndungu report, God knows whose report, which did where. You know, all that, now, it's the BBI that is everything. Suddenly, it's BBI. And if the BBI fits, and we're being told it fits, then everything else cannot really.
Yeah. Everything else falls into place.
Yes, because the BBI fits. But we're asking, does
Does
it
it fit?
really fit?
Remind us, our
A lion that roars, a lion that insists on roaring, will not catch its prey.
a roaring lion
Yes.
doesn't catch its prey.
Yes.
Are you avoiding saying a roaring lion?
You know, it's an
It's like a lion that does not.
The red lorry, yellow lorry syndrome
is mine.
But no, it's not. That thing is infectious. I may go red lolly, yellow
A roaring lion.
Yes.
Does not
When you find me
catch
going
its
into
prey.
explanations, I'm avoiding those are the alliteration. A roaring lion
I love it.
kills no prey.
Kills no prey.
Yes.
You'll be telling us what that means at the top of this hour, at the end of this hour. Well, let's talk about the coronavirus now and look at what's happening around the world, all right? So we know that cases of the coronavirus around the world are increasing. This is the kind of information that you want to see. You are asking yourself, is this what we want to see on a daily basis? Number of cases so far confirmed, 109,453. Number of deaths, 3,816. Of course, majority of those cases and deaths are in China at 3,000 deaths and 80,700 cases. South Korea comes second with the number of cases, but not with the number of deaths, because there are 51 deaths as compared to Italy, which has 7,300 cases and 366 deaths reported. Iran, 194 deaths out of 6,000 cases. And of course, France has 19 people who have died so far out of 1,126 cases. 7 people have died in the cruise ship Princess Diamond, also in Spain, 8 in US, 22 people have died so far. And now let's look at how the world is reacting to this. Italy has said, shut down the entire northern part. And they've told people self-quarantine by force. Of course, they're having problems with enforcing that, because some local officials are saying, well, how are we going to enforce this? the whole issue of enforcing that lockdown of Italy is not as effective as we saw in China. The issue of locking down the USA is a discussion. It's not yet happening. There are some states that are saying, which state was that?
Oregon is the latest.
Oregon said, it's the latest one to say, let's shut down the state. The enforcement of that shutdown, the actual practicality of that shutdown, well, is not compared to what we have seen in China. In China, when the government said shut down an entire province, lock down 100 million people, it happened.
Mm-hmm.
When they said lock down this city and people should not move, it happened. When Chinese government said, well, across the country, let's restrict movement. Cross-city movement has been restricted. No moving from one city to the other. It happened. When they said people of Chinese extraction who are, coming into the country, even who are leaving the country, you must deal with the embassies wherever you're going. That's why we saw the Chinese embassy in Nairobi coming out strongly. It's because of the order that's coming from Beijing saying, look, people are coming to that country, ensure that these protocols are still being applied. That happened. And that made me start thinking about the systems of government that we've been having. And I said, I'm going to bring this up today. If you look at the Chinese system of government and how it works, it's working perfectly to ensure that people are safe, and it's working for the people. The other systems of government that we have, where people have a say and keep talking back at the government, are not effective. So let's just look at Chinese model and say this is the way to go.
The way to go where exactly, Eric? Go, yes, but where?
In terms of government. In terms of getting ourselves governed properly. Run properly. This thing of saying, we have had this discussion here.
Yes, we've had it on many occasions.
If we today said that, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Interior, even the President stood up at State House and said, you know what, because of coronavirus, we are locking down, restricting movement out of Nairobi. Do not get out of your home. Stay indoors in Nairobi. What's going to happen? People will not stay indoors.
We will know he's talking to himself.
People will not stay indoors. People will start moving. In fact, people will start saying, no, let's me
now go home.
Because of the way they've done things previously.
Because the city is dangerous, let me go.
But it's because of the way they've previously done things. China has always been no nonsense. From the from after they realized the problems that they were in when it came to poverty. And they said, you know what? The only way we're going to get ourselves out of this is, it was authoritarian in terms of its rule. It was, this is the formula. We are following the formula.
Ndu, they had an emperor.
Yeah, he
was like God.
And he said, this is the way it's going to be done.
You can't get worse than that.
If we even look
how things work.
If we look at the last 40 years, the things that they did to be able to raise their country from the poverty to where they are today, it was not a matter of what do you think. No. It was not a matter of come, let's sit and form a committee. No. It was 5 12-year plans with which the last 5 are still ongoing. As the last 3, they still have 15 years. Can you imagine? They've done so well and they still have 15 years left of their plan in which they want to reach now that maximum capacity. They're still in it. You would look at it and say, but these folks seem to have done very well, right? But they still have some ways to go. That means as far as they're concerned, they've not even reached optimum level. But at the end of the day, they followed a formula and they said, this is the way we are going to do it. We are not veering to the right or to the left. And what I say is how it is going to be done. But now the gentleman or lady who coined the phrase, too many cooks spoil the broth, knew what they were talking about. You come and give your opinion here. Another one comes and tells us about, beds, perhaps we still have to buy. We don't have to buy. We don't know exactly what's going on. These guys were very clear from the very beginning. They knew what it is they were doing. So when a threat like this comes to the nation of coronavirus, and by the time they're telling people stay at home, you already have confidence in a government who previously has proved their worth. So you're more likely to listen to them.
Listen to your government.
Because you have seen what they have been able to do when they made edicts like this in the past, and you've seen how it has benefited you as a nation. So by the time they come and say, Omo, stay at home, you are going to stay at home. You will listen to what they have to say. Because number one, it has been clear to you.
Conditioned that, the authority of the government is unquestionable.
You've been conditioned, but you've seen results, Abi. Yes, you've been conditioned. So this condition, they have accepted it. And they said, yes, In this case, this condition, we like it very much. And it has worked for us. We see roads being built, cities being erected, schools, etc., etc. We are now number one around the globe, economically, politically, whatever it wants to be. This conditioning has worked for us. So if this same government is telling us, the same one who has conditioned us and has given us these fantastic results, is okay, let them condition us very well. Corona, they say stay at home, we'll stay at home. But on the other side of the world, when they say stay at home, what is it that they have done? Or what is it that they have done to convince you that when they open their mouths to say, stay at home, why would you, based on the performance previously? That's the question.
This whole thing of, democracy and allowing people to have a say and allowing people to be consulted in everything, this public participation story, it lengthens a process. In some cases, like in this particular case, when you're dealing with something as major as an outbreak, like this, what we're seeing, a disease outbreak, or something like war. These are times when you see the case for authoritarianism.
Mm-hmm.
And the authoritarianism here is an edict has been issued, obey the edict or else. And there's no
But you know what is also
question here or there.
even as you say that, you've given examples of America. Yes, America is one of those countries that right now is having an interesting debate on the subject of democracy. It's actually being questioned. But this is, in fact, the positive thing about such systems of government, because when they're working, you can see the benefit. And you also question, because remember, democracy is the dictatorship of the majority, if you want to think of it in those terms.
Yeah.
Now, so you then have to
where
bring in
51% of the people lord on 49%.
Yes. So then you have to bring in affirmative action, make sure you bring in other things to mitigate. Now, if you look at someone like Switzerland, essentially the origins was predominantly Germanic. But if you look at Switzerland, there's the part that is Italian, there's the part that you could consider Germanic, there's a side that is French, okay? And the English have this ability to just fit themselves somewhere in there, and they're there. Now, any country in Europe at some point was predominantly agricultural before the so-called Industrial Revolution. Yes. And if you look at what they call the democracy, look at the length of time it has taken to get them there. We could argue we've moved fairly fast in terms of actually bringing about an understanding of democracy. Maybe what we are now struggling with is how it works for us. Because what we've been trying to fit into, the democracy has prescribed for us, that doesn't fit. We understand it doesn't actually work for us.
Somebody else's democracy.
Yes, it doesn't work for us. And where the BBI, in my opinion, would be good, you see this form of government that we speak of, there is no supposedly one-fits-all system of a parliamentary system. You can have your own. People think, the one we keep discussing is the Westminster, but there are other forms of parliamentary systems. In the same way, this situation that we refer to here, I'm going somewhere with this. If you argue that China is able to do what it does because of the strong arm tactics that they use, one could argue that even within China, you're free up to a point. But the thing is, where you're not free. America,
it's clear for you.
It's clear. America is actually a police state, in my opinion. But it doesn't present itself as such. Let me explain to you why I call it a police state. If you have a country where your every movement is known, your every transaction is monitored, everything you do, where's your privacy? This individual freedom that they keep touting about, where is it?
It's interesting because when you watch films and you hear things like, the police or whatever, they say things like, I want to know if this guy blew his nose and threw the tissue in a dustbin on the corner of 4th Street. That means the system's already in place for that kind of information to be found. Or such freedoms in that sense don't exist. But then you would more likely to be able to pinpoint when somebody wants to do something. The freedoms that they talk about then are there and open. It's clear what they can or cannot do. But I would say that in something like this that we're looking at with the coronavirus, it would then be easier to then deal with in a country like China. Much easier to deal with in China because people already know. Formula, 1 + 1 is 2.
Oh, but
and
you are very clear.
It's very clear. It is not hidden. They don't say maybe it could be 0.5.
No.
They don't say maybe it could be 3 tomorrow. No. This is the way in which it's going to be. This is what we are going to follow. This is what you're going to do.
But freedom that we speak of, is it really freedom? Think about it. The world over, politicians have always managed to find ways of capturing the interest of their populace and divert them from the days of gladiators to modern days of football. What about consumerism? And the idea of a credit card? where essentially you're living in debt. But no one actually really
Nobody
ever
really
tells
tells you
you
that.
you're living in debt. But you're living in debt. And then you have an entire economy that's actually based on debt. How solid is it?
I think also, I'm going to throw it in here, that people would enjoy and would thrive under an element of control. Because if it's left kind of haphazard.
That's what government is.
Yes, but if you're left haphazard, you can basically do what you want, and then government is not fulfilling those elements and doing actually what it should do. This is where you get people feeling kind of apathetic about the system.
Yeah.
But if it is controlled from the get-go, this is what you're supposed to do, this is how you're supposed to do it, people will be very happy. In
You
fact,
just
they
wake
prefer
up, you focus on what you're
yes,
supposed to
they
do
prefer
instead of
that.
bothering about other things and
Yes,
what other people should
they
be doing.
prefer that.
17 minutes past 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at weather and then we continue this conversation.
Skies have cleared up a little bit in Nairobi at 20 degrees, partly cloudy conditions. It might clog up later on, though, with thunderstorms expected and highs of 26. At 19 degrees in Nakuru, mostly cloudy conditions. The rain will follow through later with highs of 26. In Nyeri at 19, thunderstorms expected later, holding up highs of 24. In Eldoret, currently mostly cloudy conditions, expecting some rain later with highs of 22. In Kisumu, mostly cloudy conditions at 23 degrees. We'll see a high of 27 and thunderstorms in the afternoon. In Mombasa, currently at 31 degrees. Going to be a warm day with highs of 35 and lows of 27. In Malindi at 29 degrees, we'll expect highs of 34 and lows of 27. In Kampala at 21 degrees, it's cloudy conditions, expecting rain later and thunderstorms to follow with highs of 26. And in Dar es Salaam at 29 degrees, a warm day as well with mostly cloudy conditions and rain to follow with highs of 33 and lows of 26. Down in Johannesburg at 16 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions through the day with highs of 26 and lows of 13. And we round out things in Lagos, currently clear skies with 28 degrees, highs of 36 and lows of 27.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
City Mugo is about to make a point information. Before you do that, City, pause.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Who passed on early this morning. The MP has been ailing. He was in ICU the whole of last week. He died early this morning. That is the MP for Msambweni constituency. This is in Kwale County in the South Coast. Suleiman Dori. He passed on this morning.
You know, the Western concept of freedom is something we must also debate. Because within our African cultures, we've always understood that respect has and must do with acknowledging certain facts that are not mutable. You can't sort of like move them around and joke around with them. For instance, like respect for the elderly, and with good reason. Respect for the parents, and with good reason. But when you have a culture that touts freedom, and then in so doing, it actually removes an element of irresponsibility and discipline from its ranks, then you have a problem. If you look at countries in the West that seem to have imbued in their people that sense of responsibility, one of the things that makes it possible is that they've made sure that the citizenry understand the benefits that that state has to them, like genuine free education, genuinely free medical care. They know. And say, for instance, housing in a way that guarantees that irrespective of what you're saying in life, you'll have a roof over your head, that sort of thing. You then have people who will abide by the things that are said because they know and they've seen how it benefits them.
Yes.
Now, if one can't see it, or it's ragtag and it isn't very certain, and then you bring upon it this concept of freedom, which is almost unlimited, it's an anomaly. There is nothing like unlimited freedom. Freedom exists within a certain controlled environment. Now, I'm sure that people will tell me it's not true. It is true. When you are told that the truth will set you free, what it fails to tell you, it will first make you miserable.
The truth will first make you miserable.
Before it sets you free.
And then set you free.
Then you'll be free. After the misery has passed by and you realize it's actually true. I'm just feeling bad about it because I don't like what I'm hearing, but it's actually true. In the same way, the concept of a democracy, if it doesn't work for us, then it's useless. It doesn't matter how nice it sounds and where else it has worked. If, for instance, we have a voting system that doesn't seem to bring out the results, if there were benefits constantly accruing instead of the bickering and politicking, we wouldn't mind the political system and the vote. We'd say it's a good system because you can see the benefit. But so long as every voting cycle, you seem to end up poorer and have more problems, then you have to ask, is this thing really working for us?
We have a communal system instead of a government.
Yes.
Where there are some people who get to the center of the table and they're able to eat, and then the rest of us,
yes,
picking up the crumbs.
Picking up the crumbs.
If
that's not government, because government should be the other way around. Government should be functioning for the people.
Actually,
the government should be working for the people.
When government is listened to, it's because the people have long realized that their interests are actually looked after by the government, so they have no problem obeying the government.
The truth of the matter is that if people's basic needs are met, and that's it, if your basic needs are met, your children can go to school, you have food on your table every day, there is there's a conducive environment for you to do business or have a job, and then on top of that, the state even puts in a welfare system to take care of those who may fall off the grid every now and then. Do you really think the people, the general populace, are going to be concerned with what you do?
No.
They don't bungle it if you like, but they're
and
taken care of.
They don't want to. They shouldn't.
They're taken care of. They're not going to bother, and
they will let you do your business.
Yes. And even more, when you still come and tell them on top of that what to do, they're likely to listen to you because of the fact that you have taken care of the things that they would otherwise be preoccupied with. So them, they're going about the business of living day to day and making sure that they're thriving in this country. Right? They don't even have a need to go anywhere. They are able to reach a point of self-actualization within the boundaries of their nation. And then a government comes and tells them, on top of what we've been able to do for you, we'd actually like you to do this. Self-quarantine.
Yep.
Stay in Nairobi, for example, when this thing comes about. We've taken all... who is going to complain? It's okay, no problem.
The first question someone asks is, what are they gaining from this?
Yeah, and where exactly... And then you even start asking, what exactly do you mean by... You start asking, what would they be stealing? And then number two, what exactly do they mean by Nairobi? Is Nairobi, can it be Kiambu? Can it be Lumuru? Can I go? With a controlled system, with a formulaic government, you will not have those questions arising. They said stay in Nairobi. You stay in your house.
Because you understand, and history has shown you that they have your interests at heart. And the decisions they make, you've seen the benefit and felt the benefit of it.
And there's pressure within even the government, the governors themselves, to ensure that they're delivering the services for you.
Can you imagine
when
then on
those
top of
don't,
that?
There's change in leadership. We saw change in leadership of Hubei province just because the government in Beijing
looked and said, no.
Look, what's happening there? No, let's bring in somebody else.
And now, look at what happened in China when we looked at the lockdown that happened in Wuhan and Hubei. What did the government still then go further to do? There were airdrops of food. There are airdrops of medicine. There are government personnel who are coming and are taking vitals of individuals every day, every 3 hours.
Yep.
Can you imagine the kind of coordination that is taking place in that government? They are making sure that, you can't leave, but everything that you need still is being provided for you. The kind of coordination that takes place. So even if they say lockdown, your own is how long? We will stay.
Yeah.
We will wait. We will wait for you to, because you have
they
seen.
They even say, don't even take your garbage.
Right. We'll come and do it for you. Why? Because historically, and you talk about this quite often, City, because historically you've been able to see that these guys mean business. When they said they were going to do something previously, they have done it. We have entire cities in China that have been built and nobody's living in them because they said they're going to develop the country. Leave it, develop it, leave it there. You've said you're going to take our children to school for free until they're 18. We can see that it is happening. A road spoils in China and Japan today. There's a pothole today. You come tomorrow morning and drive on that same road. It has been fixed. It has been sorted out. Nobody's asking questions about
is far.
Is overnight.
Ours, it's become a crater.
Yeah, nobody's asking questions about the inadequacy of government.
Actually, if you take the example of what they've done on Parklands Road, the one at Parklands Police Station, there's that roundabout going to MP Shah. So they come, they dig up the road,
and then they leave it.
And then they leave it.
And they leave it dug.
They've gone.
If you want to come and swim inside, that's your problem.
Gone.
They've left it for you.
Their job is done.
So here, managing this, I do agree that managing this coronavirus the world over will shine a light on the inadequacies of many a government on how they're able to put things in place that either control their people. Or point to their inadequacies. It's going to be very clear. Another opportunity for you to see how really you are able to govern your people in what you've been able to provide for them to do or not to do. Even in the United States itself, that has been long been touted as the global leader in everything. What do we have now? Oregon saying, we're not.
Here they are now. They're making, separate announcements. So this state government,
Minnesota says one thing, Oregon says another thing,
the federal
California
government
says another
cannot agree
thing.
with the local government. The president is insulting the mayor of a city. This is the kind of disorganization that you see in this kind of governments.
It's good because now you see what really is going on.
People are saying, yes, so do we have enough test kits? We don't have enough test kits. So the government is arguing, it's because of Barack Obama's government that we don't have test kits today. In America, there are those who are saying, we work in national security and such matters, and we constantly keep advising the government to be prepared for such eventualities. And this is exposing those cracks. In the fullness of time, China will be sitting back and will be the one who is so far ahead out of this crisis.
But they're already ahead.
Now they'll be so farther ahead.
In fact, Eric,
because of this crisis.
You're spot on, because even WHO is saying the yardstick by which preparedness is now being measured
is the same China.
Yes, the standards that China has set. It's now become a Chinese model for containing and managing this condition. Now, if you look at, remember earlier on when we were looking at the news, we had talked about how the delay in putting certain things in place have now made the US, they're running after the disease now. See, it is huge news. The first country in Europe, to announce and bring about a lockdown. Why? Because they didn't think that Europe would need a lockdown.
That point.
So you have flus that kill people in your countries during winter. So, and this is a virus. Flus are caused by viruses. Somehow you are immune because it came from China.
You had never anticipated.
It's a Chinese disease.
Not immune because it came from China. Immune because you are in Europe. You see?
No, because you're European.
Exactly. Because you're European, you're not going to get this thing. Because you could have come from anywhere, but because of the fact that you're within that boundary that is Europe, we can't get it.
Actually, and European. Believe me, Chinese in Caucasian-dominated places have been picked on.
Yeah.
Even if you come from there, you live there, people know who you are because you're Chinese. Now, what this has brought, remember the biases we're talking about that keep hidden? It is clear that there are some people who don't think very highly of Chinese.
That's obvious now.
Oh, it's more than obvious. How do you call a disease, how do you name it by a group of people? And yet now we are having cases where somebody has a COVID-19 infection but has been nowhere near China or Italy. Zero. None. So how do you explain this one now?
In the fullness of time, because of how China dealt with this thing, because of their government and the way their government is able to function, and they have dealt with it. In fact, now we have seen, new China from coronavirus within 24 hours. They are being able to contain it and manage it. They will recover. They will start getting back to work. By the time the rest of the world is catching up, China will be far gone. Far gone. It's 9:30. This is the Situation Room. Let's take a look at the roads.
All right, looking much better wherever you look around the city. It's not as bad as we saw it earlier. It's Monday morning, but things seem to have opened up a lot better now. Getting into Upper Hill, though, from the CBD, there's a little bit of a hold up there. Not quite sure, but it will open up without an issue concerning that. Coming off of Thika Road, a little bit slower than we would expect at this time, but that will open up, not to worry. Inside the CBD, though, is where you might have an issue today. A little bit of trouble on Gong Road still, but not so bad either. Coming off Mombasa Road and then getting to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, then on Uhuru Highway, then trying to get into CBDs where we see the bumper-to-bumper action. But again, that will open up. So it's been quite the Monday morning in terms of traffic. Unless something out of the ordinary happens from now, I think we should be okay. But do not hesitate to let us know. Spice FM KE.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
A COVID-19 update from the Chinese embassy in Nairobi.
Mature, intelligent talk every...
That on March 7th, they saw 0 fatalities and 3 newly confirmed cases, excluding the Hubei province, all of which were imported. That means that for the first time since the outbreak, there were no cases of local transmission, excluding in Hubei province. Hubei province, the newly confirmed case dropped to 41, and they were all reported in Wuhan. Other cities in Hubei province reported 0 newly confirmed cases for 3 days in a row. 1,543 more patients were discharged from hospitals. 1,500 discharged from hospitals. 28 provinces out of 31 have reported 0 newly confirmed cases in China. As of 2400 on March 7th, that is Beijing time, on Saturday, 80,695 confirmed cases had been reported, including 57,065 that had been cured. On March 8th, yesterday, Wuhan Keting Exhibition Center Mobile Cabin Hospital, the largest mobile hospital, has been closed, making the 3rd makeshift hospital that's being closed. This hospital has admitted and cured 1,760 patients. So they're just saying, look, this is how we're able to manage this thing. Now we are able to contain it. Now, in fact, we are seeing cases where there are no transmissions, no local transmission of this virus. This is how they've dealt with it. How did they do it? The government issued an edict, said, lock down that province. It was done. The government said, lock down cities, no movement across cities. It happened. Now they've said, they had even said no schools. All those things happened because the government has said, and people were able to follow those orders. That's how they were able to contain it. Let's juxtapose that with Italy, for instance. Italy now is saying lock down the entire northern part of Italy. Is it being successful? It's not 100% successful from the reports that we're seeing from major news outlets. It is not 100% successful. Why? Because, one, the local authorities, the local officials are saying, well, how can I go around? I don't want to be infected myself. So I'm not going out there to expose myself. I am not going to participate in the enforcement of this, quarantine. Second, why is it not happening as fast? Because the government was taking too long to decide what exactly should we do. How should we react to this? America, cases are rising in the number of deaths. We've seen 22 deaths so far. Many cases rising. How many people are testing? Not many people are testing. Why? Argument. Oh, we don't have enough test kits. Oh, when you go to get tested, it's costly. Who's going to cover this cost? Who is it? They're still having those discussions. Meanwhile, cases are increasing in America. System of government and how governments work. This is exposing the rest of the world versus China.
Yeah, and also for
We've
you to
all
see,
been laughing at China and saying, look at this guy. Now they're
taken over by this disease.
Now.
And it could, I think, also then lends to seeing what a global attitude is of, things can't really touch us. And this is it. Countries like Italy would have seen at this point that, all right, even if it does come, who did we see in South Africa affected? An Italian. Who did we see in Nigeria affected? An Italian. We've seen in Tunisia, of the cases that we've seen, 2 have been Italians, 1 Italian in Senegal. What are we talking about?
Even South Africa, they're now attaching
it's an Italian,
yes.
exactly. So,
but of interest, of interest in all these cases, even within China, there are people who've been tested, treated, released. Tested 3 to 15 days later, they still test positive.
Yep.
So now another debate has arisen. Is it someone can have the symptoms that indicate that they actually have the virus, but it is what they're measuring, the temperature and what have you. There's a term they're using that somebody may have what they call viral genomic material without the infectious virus. Meaning, if you don't have the infectious virus, then you can't transmit it, but you will exhibit signs of it. In short, there's more and more being discovered about the virus that was not known. So even what we are now dealing with has to do with what is out in the public domain and what they know. But as more research is being conducted, they are beginning to figure out that there is a lot more about the virus that they didn't know. But this, again, is the nature of many infections, especially those that are considered new. There is what you know, there's what you think you know, and there's what you keep
discovering.
Yes, exactly.
I think it also points to the fact that the global attitude, especially coming out of a lot of, and even with America, would be that, you know what, these things barely affect us. This one is not going to affect us, or we're not going to bear the brunt of the weight of this thing. And that was clear. And I think that's why you have
theories that are being spread. Even
this is why you have Italy now.
His name?
His name was Cotton. Yeah, Senator Cotton. Right.
Senator Cotton. Coming and showing, this thing is China. China is
you guys
withholding information.
Yeah, where are our forces? You guys need to shut this thing down on that side. And this is what Italy was doing. Now you want to lock down now where you have how many cases already? 7,000 plus. Now is when you want to lock down. A little bit too late. So I think it's time also for them to see that the shedding of some of these attitudes, it needs to happen now. The shedding of nothing can touch us because we are, a particular area, or because of where we are, or who we are, or where we are from. My friend, this thing, we get you. It will get anybody at this point.
Now, to throw even more dead cats into the situation, all right? If we look at the report by the Guangzhou Institute of Respiratory Disease in China, they published a report on COVID-19. One of the things they also mentioned that in some cases you had patients in a hospital, but they didn't have all the signs that you speak of. None whatsoever. And that the percentage of patients who could actually die was something just 1.4 of those who were there. Meaning even the deaths and what's causing them is still something that is being investigated. So you can conclude a few certainties, but there are so many other things that they are not certain about. And one thing that is clearly becoming apparent, there's nothing Chinese about this. It just so happened that it was first noted and seen in China, and specifically in that particular place. And they now need to find out why it was that place was where they found it. And instead of looking for individuals with the disease, probably look at similar circumstances in which this particular virus can germinate and grow and then propagate itself. Because if all these things that are being discovered points to, it's not as though it has a predominant love for people who come from China.
Yep.
Then is it the environment? What is it? Now, these are the questions that I think scientists are still in the process of actually trying to answer.
Good questions to ask.
No, they must. And under these circumstances, I'm afraid we have to ask those questions. Because look at something that bothered the world, HIV. To date, even when ARVs have gotten to a point where it was understood combination therapy was good, it worked. Instead of having a whole pharmacy in your hands to take every day, you went to 3. You can even have a combined therapy in one drug now. And then various aspects of it, whether it is a gel, whether it is this, whether you can prevent, all these things have taken place over all these years. Research is still being conducted. And yet there's a lot that is known, meaning there's an understanding. You see, the thing about research, you're trying to find a response to a question, isn't it? And when you find a response, another question usually comes up. Now, this is a virus. So, even if you have knowledge of other viruses, this particular one, we don't. Not as much information as we would like. And believe me, every time I look at this disease and I read about the disease, what is clear to me? The shock is yet to come.
We haven't seen the worst of it
No,
yet.
we haven't. Because the places that tout themselves as having the best healthcare system in the world, that is the West,
they're being tested now.
They are being tested properly. Italy is saying that the healthcare system can't cope with this. They're saying it. It's not that they're saying this one, we can't. So, when you have such a situation, you have a genuine problem on your hands. Now, so even as we blame our governments, this one we have to be kind on our people in this sense. It's not Africans only who do these things. This burying your head in the sand. The Western countries did precisely that. And now the diseases are catching them off guard completely.
Brings me back to open the phone lines now, 0719-012-600. The question is democracy a stumbling block for governments to deal with emergencies like this one, like what we're seeing now, COVID-19? We have seen how China handled it because China, the government says, everybody follows. In the rest of the world, the government says, and it becomes a conversation. Oh, you must bring it to parliament. It must be discussed. It must be approved. We must have public participation. People will keep questioning one or the other. Doctors with a contrary opinion will be appearing in the media saying, I don't think what the government is telling us to do is the right thing to do for us right now. I think what the government... Come on. Follow the system. This has worked in China. It's working in China. It doesn't seem to be working in the rest of the world. Is it because of the system of government? Authoritarianism, one party, one very strong party versus other kind of, governments where we are seeing democracies.
I think it's clear that this has provided an opportunity to shed light on things that would have been underlying, and we didn't really take cognizance of those facts. And it's clear that perhaps systems of governments that we would have touted for long as being the one end all and be all of everything, perhaps actually are not working or wouldn't make sense in certain instances, like this one, for example, where it would look like something so simple could be followed because a government was giving, an order and said, this is the way in which it would go. But just like you said, you have so many things coming in. Human rights, you can't keep me in my house. You have other things coming into the forest. Professionals asking questions. You have to bring us in on this point. We have to lend our voice to this as well. Security organizations come in. No.
Media.
This is the way it's going to be. Every other
heads.
agency will fall in line if that is the way it's supposed to be. And I think this what it does is that it then shows the handicaps of many systems that the world is, currently employing, and saying that in some cases, actually, this probably wouldn't work. And maybe it's time for a revisitation of such to say, in other instances, perhaps we can change this or tweak it to suit our needs a little bit better.
But remember, these are countries. Italy had problems of this nature in the 18th century and such that, that's a long time ago. Now, the truth of the matter is that these are the challenges that we keep talking about: Zika virus, Ebola, HIV. These countries haven't had these problems.
They thought they were immune.
They've been a non-issue.
Yep.
So the preparedness was not the health system. The preparedness was their mind in dealing. Because it looks like they first took a step of denial.
This thing can't come to us.
No, it's not us. And you're seeing that. No, it's not.
No, you can't.
By the time you're realizing it, that thing has taken off. It's gone. It's almost. It has grown wings. It's flying. Now, that was the unpreparedness. It's not the health system, because people who had the mind, the Chinese had that mind. Problem, you clamp on it immediately. No jokes. Remember the question we asked Eric.
They've faced other calamities and disasters.
Like?
These countries. We've had floods, we've had fires, we've had all these kind of things.
They have those ones perennially, so they don't even think it's a big deal. They even know you'll move people. They know that when it rains.
Look at countries like Australia, for example. Australia is already planning this year for the fires that are going to come next year. California fires for 2020, the summer. They're already ready. They already know what to do. They know that they'll have some calamities.
This one is different.
The one thing that look at how they handle those. Let's look at California and its fires, right? Look at how they handle it. Until the last minute, people are still being pleaded with to move.
Yeah, you can't force somebody to move because of the human rights. This is my right to my habitation and such.
If you're preparing for a fire in 2022, then you should be able to say, by June, the fire is coming in August. By June, nobody should be living here. By June, we should have this kind of firefighters in place.
Interestingly enough, they do. I'm telling you the truth. The government of The government of California makes it straight. We could dig it up now, and they've already talked about evacuation plans that need to happen in the summer of 2020.
But it's a discussion.
But that's the thing, because now human rights and all kinds of other things come into play.
It's a discussion.
Yeah, we can't force you to leave. We've told you that you should. We've put it there that you actually should get out of here. They have gone as far as to create shelters because of how bad it was last year, have then created shelters on the outskirts of certain cities in California so that people can have temporary habitation until the situation dies down. They've planned that far, but just like you've said, they can't force people to do it, because then matters of human rights and freedoms come into place. Can you force me to leave? Even if you're trying to enforce something, you can't force me to leave. This is my home. I built it. I have a right as an American citizen. So can you imagine by the time you start dabbling with all of those things, people will lose lives and you come and blame us again tomorrow? Can you imagine? Whereas China says, you're going nowhere. What do you need? Food, medicine, checking of vitals? We'll bring it to you.
We'll sort you out.
We'll sort you out.
But remember, as I said, the Chinese are clear about it. There's no ambiguity. The Americans and the Australians are not different from the Chinese. It's just their method of making sure that they have their people captive that differs. Freedom is a tool for enslavement, depending on how you define it. Because I can give you more freedom than you know, to the point where you start drowning in it. Meaning, there is so much of it. And in allowing you, giving you the impression that you can do what you like, no one can do what they like, and no one can say anything they like against governments. It doesn't happen. But you believe it is, isn't it? Then the government proceeds to do exactly what it wants to do in the name of freedom.
In the name of freedom, indeed. Looking at the example of China versus the example of the other countries that now have these cases of coronavirus and how they're dealing with it, we're asking this morning, is democracy a stumbling block when governments need to execute emergency measures like this one for COVID-19? Is democracy a stumbling block? Compare what is happening to America, in Italy, and what is happening to China. 0719-012-600 at 9:45. You can call in now and join the conversation. Good morning.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
When countries like absolute monarchies, Saudi Arabia, for instance, it's possible for the government to issue a decree, and this is what is followed.
Oh yeah, because I mean, look at what did they do 2 weeks ago? Where no, I think it was 2 weeks ago, when they basically said, look, something as delicate or as taken so seriously by the Islamic faith as the Hajj, and they've said we are not issuing any visas. Forget about it. We will at some point, even those visas which are still active, we might even cancel.
Yep.
We are not allowing that to happen. We have said. That is the way it is going to be. Not can I then apply if things die down. No, nothing is going to happen. There's no question about it. But again, if you go and find out what the Saudis have been able to do for their people and in terms of what is provided when it comes to basic needs, you'll find that they're in line. Now,
contrast that with Iran. Right? So yes, we've got the Ayatollahs, but people have a lot of say in Iran. You know, they keep pouring out into the streets to express their opinion. Expressing their opinion, look what happened. The number of cases just shot up. Went out of control.
Outside
ministers.
China, they've had the highest number of cases. Now, to make it even more pointed, Deputy Minister for Health.
And then the health minister.
By the way, you're going to see these cases even in the western part of the world where you'll find important people. And then you'll understand these guys have not been to China.
Then that's when you'll realize.
They have no exposure at all.
China. So let us start looking at the source of this virus and forget the geographical location.
Let me tell you, I think that we had cases of this coronavirus running around in Europe even before we realized what was going on.
It's just that we gave it different names.
It's just that we gave it different names, one. And then secondly, the focus was on China.
It's probable.
Yeah, because here you have, how is it that in Italy, for example, you're almost knocking on the door of 8,000 cases, and these numbers only came out as a result of then scrutiny that was being done.
How many weeks?
After February 15th.
And it tells you
February
that more
15th
probably
to March
exist.
8th. Exactly. February 15th to March 8th, we're at 8,000 cases. And you mean to tell me that only then did we find the first case in China? I think it was walking around in Europe a while ago.
Yeah, a lot longer.
Literally, yes.
Boga calling in from Nairobi. Good morning. Hello. Hello, Boga.
How are you?
Salam.
Fine, thank
How
you.
are you?
Yeah, I want to make a general contribution for the good of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say that I would be very happy, and many listeners, if you can give us press review, what is contained, the major news in the newspapers, without giving any comments or opinions.
Okay, and why would we want to do that?
Yeah, people want to know what is contained, what the papers are saying, not what the presenter's opinion or commentary.
Boga, God. Boga, why don't you just buy the paper
and read the rest,
or listen to the radio when they actually read the news out?
Well, I didn't get the point though.
Okay.
Did you get it?
Moving on.
No, I did.
What's he say?
I did. His view is...
Read the paper, don't give analysis.
Just read the paper and tell us, all right, what it is. I think we perhaps need to explain what we do here. Yes, because we do read the papers and we do look at the issues, but this is his view and that's what he would like. Yes. And I'm sure he knows he can buy a paper. I also know, I'm sure he can actually listen to the radio and listen to the news. I'm sure he understands all these things. So for him to be saying what he's saying, he must feel that maybe we need to spend more time just telling them more and more things that happen in the papers. But then that, of course, is not our mandate here.
No.
We will tell you about a lot of... In fact,
we'll do a lot of analysis.
We don't even talk about many things in the papers. Not really.
It's an analytical show.
Yeah, but...
This is what we do.
Yes.
So there's news. Of course, there's... like now, we're giving you when there's a breaking news, like the death of Suleiman Dori, the MP from Sambweni. We tell you what has happened, when it happens. Soon we'll also be having news bulletins coming around the clock. So yes, we'll be sorted on that.
But I want to give it more thought to what he said. I wish since we have his number, maybe we should look for him and call him again and ask, okay, we heard you, we thought we understand, but what did you really mean? Yes.
We'll do that. Back to the issue, the topic at hand.
You know, there's something that sometimes people forget about what you call denial. Denial with HIV for me was the eye-opener, and because I've worked in that field for a long time. Denial didn't have to do with the existence of the disease, but associative issues. The moment it was clear that you were given options as to how it is the virus could get to you, shaving, blood transfusion, then we settled on predominantly sex. And given our nature and the way we as Kenyans understand sex, it then became understood that for somebody to be HIV positive, they were promiscuous. And then it became understood that if you're HIV positive, then you're promiscuous. If you're married, then you must be cheating. A lot of non-realistic issues got surrounded. A lot of it came out to the fore. But a lot of these things had to do with issues people had nothing to do with the disease. My perception of this, my understanding of it, my fear of it, and it all came down to one thing, denial.
Denial. Can you take a pause and we talk to Otieno?
Yes.
Otieno is calling in from Nairobi. Good morning, Otieno.
Yeah, I'm back. As City put it,
yes.
For the longest time possible, I've come to believe that democracy is very dangerous on a matter of making decisions. And true, democracy is very, very expensive. And if you look, maybe Western countries, see they are debating on these small issues on what should be done, and they are also asking those who are not maybe they don't have know-how on the matters concerning health or something. So I think China, how they are handling their things, direction must be given by the expertise on issues to be done. And on your previous topic, you are saying about people saying some things, maybe politicians saying something. I think they are saying to the people these things because the kind of democracy we are allowing those who does not know, they know little about governance to participate on voting. So that they make a choice of their leader. That is dangerous. We should also check on our model of election so that going forward we look on differences, or even we adopt a monarchy if that needs be.
Right.
But allowing people who has got little knowledge about things
to participate
to participate on a serious issue, especially on national. But for example, let me give you one example before I leave you. For a moment, just think of this fellow who is doing a business worth something like 500 per day. And this fellow who is a multi-millionaire or a billionaire in this country, who makes something like 1 million or 2 million per day, something of the sort, for example. These people during elections, they make decisions equally because they have got one vote, one person, one vote. It is so dangerous, and you know, the anarchists can take advantage of that. So
Point
let's
made.
going forward. Let's check on our system of democracy and let's check on when decisions made, who should make it.
Point made. Thank you very much, Otieno.
Thank you.
I think we'll raise it as a topic one of these days again.
Well, research that has been ongoing on the COVID-19, specifically Center for Infectious Disease and Research Policy. This is a report on the 28th of February 2020. One of the things that they brought out in the discussion was something called coexistence of other diseases and what they call comorbidity, meaning even as you exhibit signs of being infected by the COVID-19, what other underlying ailments or conditions did you have? Yes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. Now, what they figured out, one, the mean age of many of the patients within China was 48.6. But they found, number one, high blood pressure tended to lend itself more towards someone dying. It was at 16.9%. Cardiovascular disease was 3.7. Now, why am I saying this? The discussion around it should be around these matters because they'll point you more towards the possibility of dying than where the disease comes from.
As we conclude, let's talk about today's proverb. The roaring lion.
Yes, red lorry, yellow lorry.
Yes.
The roaring lion kills no game. The roaring lion will not catch its prey. What does it mean? It means this. For a hunter, it's fairly obvious that you cannot expect to ensnare a prey if you make it obvious that this is what you're doing. By roaring, a lion makes its presence known. If it is you want to succeed in something, it's sometimes good to keep something to your chest, but it's sometimes also good to understand the lay of the land and to know what is appropriate. In this case, roaring isn't the best approach to catching game or catching your prey.
So keep your cards close to your chest.
It is important to keep your cards close to your chest, but even better still, it is important for you to understand when it is the right time to do certain things. In terms of politics, it's correct to know when to say what, when to cry wolf, when to keep quiet, when to drink water, when to drink wine.
And again, when to keep quiet.
Yes.
Who do you think he's referring to here?
Let's take 3 guesses and see what we land on.